Chapter 714. I have to increase my strength as soon as possible. There's only one way to do that. Suppress the big goblin and capture the junior commanders. It's best if there are 100,000 of them. That way, I'll use my natal treasure to strengthen the junior commanders. With the help of those experts, I'll be able to create a world barrier in a short time. Strength is everything. If I don't reach the level of the Sector Lord and can deal with the immortals, what's the point of fusing with the human Emperor world? Once the Sector Lord and the immortals come, the human Emperor world will be destroyed by them, even if I can escape. Creating a world barrier for the human Emperor world was still a huge problem. Finally, he gave up. He immediately returned to his cave abode. He gathered more than 20,000 slaves and asked them to leave the human Emperor world. However, he did not expect that most of them were willing to stay. A small number wanted to leave, but they wanted to wait for the Xinyuan Empire's army to leave. Since that was the case, Su Fang allowed them to stay and let Qin Yuan Ho, Broad Reflection Sage King, Black Revered Grand Elder, and Red Lotus Grand Elder take charge. Su Fang also asked Su Jinhua to gather 30,000 Xinyuan Empire cultivators. After all these years, they had completely surrendered. Su Fang still wanted to plant the imprint in these people's bodies. It had to be done perfectly. Tell me, are there any small worlds with more big goblin in the galaxies near the primordial god world and immortal primordial domain? In the center of the formation, Su Fang summoned Qin Yuan Ho, Su Jinhua, Broad Reflection Sage King, Elder Tsang Hao, and the other experts. Elder Tsang Hao walked out immediately. Master, in the galaxies behind the immortal primordial domain, there's a small world called the Immortal Melody World. This small world has only had a Sector Lord for a few million years. Most of it is barren. Although some cultivation forces have moved in, the righteous Tao is still not as strong as the demonic Tao. Especially when the heavenly sun rose, countless big goblin went berserk in the small worlds around the immortal primordial domain. Otherwise, the big goblin would have escaped into the Immortal Melody World. Immortal Melody World, it turned out that there were experts here who had been to the Immortal Melody World. Qin Yuan Ho also continued to introduce. Indeed, as Elder Tsang Hao said, the Immortal Melody World has not been born for a long time, while other worldlets have been born for at least tens of millions of years. The Immortal Melody World is dominated by the Demon Tao, and the righteous cultivation forces have only been there for millions of years. The cultivation forces are still weak. I heard that the Sector Master of the Immortal Melody World is neither good nor evil, and he rarely intervenes in the worldlets. He allows the Immortal Melody World to develop according to the laws of nature, resulting in the survival of the fittest, and the Demon Tao becomes the main force there. Su Fang had an idea in front of everyone, and motioned for Su Jinhua to come out, and ordered, "Su Jinhua, you and I will go to the Immortal Melody World. Listen to my orders and recuperate and cultivate here. Listen to the orders of the two seniors. Even if the Xinyuan Empire finds this place one day, you don't have to worry. With two big goblin with Tao artifacts, and you, even if the Emperor of the Xinyuan Empire comes, he won't be able to take advantage of you. Moreover, it's impossible for the Xinyuan Empire's army to take the risk to enter this kind of nebula galaxy." He then asked Qin Yuan Ho, Guangzhou Sage King, and Elder Tsang Hao in detail about the Immortal Melody World. The three of them had been there before, and even Su Jinhua had been there several times. Green Feather King, Li Zhe Qing quickly rushed over, and when he learned that Su Fang was going to the Immortal Melody World, he understood why Su Fang was going there. He released all the junior commanders of the Xianhuang Six Paths Pagoda and had the Vermilion Emperor and 9-segment Earth Dragon guard them. Unfortunately, there were only 635 junior commanders left, and the rest had died in the Dust Star River. After arranging everything, Su Fang, Su Jinhua, and Li Haojia immediately flew into the depths of the Dust Star River. The three of them entered the Dust Star River, and they found the experts of the Xinyuan Empire, but there were very few of them, only a little more than 1,000. Su Jinhua didn't have much of a change in expression, and he didn't do anything strange. If he really did something, or reported to the experts of the Xinyuan Empire, he he would probably be killed instantly by Su Fong. When they flew to the edge, they also saw a large number of troops. This wasn't normal, and the Xinyuan Empire must be doing something. For now, Su Fong couldn't care about this, and flew towards the Dust Star River behind the primordial god world and the immortal primordial world. Around the two small worlds, there were many small worlds, such as the True Dragon world and the Immortal Radiance world. There were about a dozen planets, and the strongest were naturally the primordial god world and the immortal primordial world. After flying out of this Dust Star River, there were only 3 planets in the distant Dust Star River. The last one was the Immortal Melody world. Su Jinhua introduced to Su Fong. The 2 small worlds in front of the Immortal Melody world are the spiritual Dust world and the Heaven Square world. These 2 small worlds are in a normal state of cultivation, and they are deeper into the Immortal Melody world. There are also many demonic Tao forces in these 2 small worlds, and they're many times more powerful than the Big Goblin in the Immortal Primordial world. After Su Fong nodded, Li Haojia asked with concern, "Brother Fong, how many Big Goblin do you want to catch this time? The more the better. I can suppress 100,000 Big Goblins, and I estimate that the goal is to catch 10,000 Big Goblins. It would be best if I could catch 100,000 Big Goblin." 100,000 Big Goblin Demon Hunter Li Haojia was stunned for a while before slowly replying, Just 10,000 Big Goblin. 100,000 Big Goblins, and they are as strong as the Vermilion Emperor and the 9-segment Earth Dragon? How can there be 100,000? I will not reject anyone. You have the Elemental Suppression and Demon Transformation Heavenly Book, and I also have a Tao artifact and the Xianwang 6 Paths Pagoda. It would be best if we could meet a big goblin like the Immortal Toad. Haha, I really want to meet the Immortal Toad. Li Haojia's strength had increased greatly recently, and he was still thinking about the Immortal Toad. With a loud laugh, the 3 of them increased their speed and flew towards the Dust Star River. There were some nebulas around the 3 small worlds, but they were very thin. After about 5 years of traveling, the 3 of them finally passed through the spiritual Dust world and the Heaven Square world, and they could clearly see the Immortal Melody world with their naked eyes. It was indeed a desolate planet. The world barrier was filled with a vast and cold aura, as though it was a planet that was in a frozen state. In less than 3 months, they finally arrived at the Immortal Melody world. After entering the world barrier and arriving in the sky, the 3 of them took a deep breath and rode the cloud into the sky. They looked down at the majestic mountain ranges. The mountain ranges were connected at the end, like giant beasts hibernating in the depths of the earth. What the 3 of them felt was the desolation. The forests and mountain ranges seemed to be in hibernation and would wake up at any moment. Li Haojia sneered. Most of the Immortal Melody world is demonic aura. It is indeed a blessed land to suppress the Big Goblin. Let's find a place to set up a formation first. After all, we will probably have to stay here for a long time. After Su Fong finished speaking, the 3 of them used teleportation to get closer to the ground and flew into the distance. Fortunately, Su Jinhua had a rough map of the Immortal Melody world. Following the map, their speed became more and more astonishing. After passing through countless mountain ranges, they suddenly saw some cities or cultivation factions. There were also first-rate factions here. In order to not attract trouble, they chose to set up a secret barrier in the territory of a third-rate faction called the Burning Heaven Sword Sect. According to Su Jinhua's introduction, the Burning Heaven Sword Sect was once a first-rate faction in the spirit dust world more than 100,000 years ago. According to ancient records, the Burning Heaven Sword Sect offended the strongest faction in the spirit dust world, the Immortal Mist Sect, and began to decline. In the end, they were forced to move to the Immortal Melody world. Because the Immortal Mist Sect was related to the spirit dust world's realm master, it was still the strongest faction in the spirit dust world. For the Burning Heaven Sword Sect to offend such a faction, there was only one outcome: destruction. The Immortal Mist Sect had dealings with the Doichi and the Xinyuan Empire. Crown Prince Zhanhua had come to the spirit dust world several times as a representative of the Xinyuan Empire, so he had a certain understanding of the various factions in these three small worlds. After understanding this, Su Fong was not surprised by the burning Heaven Sword sect's desolation. The Immortal Mist sect, the Green Lotus Sword sect, and the Doichi were existences that other factions could not offend. If they offended them, just like the Spirit sect, only destruction awaited them. On the contrary, it was already inconceivable that the burning Heaven Sword sect could still stand in the immortal melody world. In the depths of a canyon, Su Fong set up a formation in this canyon. The three of them began to cultivate quietly. It was 100 times better here than in the mortal emperor world. The spiritual chi here was naturally abundant. Whether it was cultivation or recovery, it was better than in the mortal emperor world. After resting for a few months, Su Jinhua followed Su Fong's order and went deep into the cultivation territory to collect detailed information about the strength of the Demon Dao factions in the immortal melody world. When he returned, Su Fong and Li Haojia had a clearer understanding of the immortal melody world. The Demon Dao factions in the immortal melody world were distributed in 3 continents. The continents they were currently in were all the territories of the cultivation factions. There were many big goblin habitats nearby that were marked one by one. In the depths of the vast territory, there were 3 continents. Big goblins that were famous in the immortal melody world, the spiritual dust world, and the celestial land world gathered there. They were all existences like the immortal toad and the sky drill, rat emperor. There were so many big goblins that they could not be counted. In addition to the 3 continents, there were also large numbers of big goblins in other territories. It was impossible to count how many peerless big goblins there were. In the end, Li Haojia said his idea. Brother Fong, let's split up to catch the goblins. It's good to split up. The big goblin I want could be as strong as the immortal toad or as strong as the immortal toad. As long as the big goblin has the strength of the immortal toad realm, it can be my small commander. Su Fong said slowly, I took a closer look just now. There are some big goblins in the immortal melody world. They are probably just one step away from ascending to the great world. They are even stronger than the immortal toad. Brotherly, you should be careful when you encounter such big goblin. With my current strength, it is not a small matter to use the Yuan Suppression Demon Transformation Heavenly Book to suppress them. I'm worried that some big goblins will also have Dao artifacts. We don't understand them. If we really encounter those big goblins that have Dao artifacts, you and I will be in danger. Also, don't stay in the goblins' territory for too long. Suppress them for a few days and come back to rest for a while. I understand. I'll take my leave first. Li Haojia was really impatient and immediately flew out of the canyon. Master, what should I do? At this moment, Su Zhen came in front of Su Fong. Su Fong pointed to the sky. You are in charge of contacting the human emperor world and secretly communicate with Qin Yuan Ho. I want to know the current situation of a human emperor world every few years. You should also seize the time to fuse with the Yuan refining immortal pearl. That Dao artifact will be of great help to you. I'll be on standby. Su Zhen bowed and left in a flash. In terms of cultivation and strength, Su Zhen was much stronger than him and Li Haojia. Once he fused with the Yuan refining immortal pearl, he would be even stronger. The Wuan continent has the most big goblin in the immortal melody world. It is also one of the continents where the big goblins gather. Let's go to this Wuan continent. The big goblins here all have the strength of the immortal toad, especially a few famous demon kings. During the rest process, he felt that his injuries had recovered by 50%. He felt that he was in a very good state. He immediately set off and teleported towards the depths of the immortal melody world. Wuan continent, one of the 3 famous continents in the immortal melody world. There were many powerful demon kings on this continent. There were no human cultivators here, only countless big goblin. A few days later, Su Fong arrived at the continent where the burning Heaven Sword sect was located. It seemed to be the end of the world, in the sky above a dark, sunless territory. Chapter 715. Demonic aura surged in the depths of this sunless world. There were countless ghostly wails and howls. This was a purgatory world. Using his great perfection perception, a shocking amount of demonic aura came from the periphery of the Crow King continent. Most of the demonic aura had the strength of a catastrophe realm cultivator. There were also quite a number of demonic auras that had reached the feather transformation realm, as expected of the demonic Tao's territory. With another sweep, he disappeared into the dark sky like a gust of wind sweeping into the dark land. Moving as fast as lightning, he had already entered the Crow King continent. At this moment, he was a majestic mountain range. Some of the mountain peaks were like human figures. Some would think that this was the Shinja Gate. There are two big goblins in this forest. One is at the catastrophe realm, and the other at the feather transformation realm. They are suppressing one after the other. Su Fang's great perfection perception, combined with his world strength, allowed him to sense every nook and cranny of this mountain range. He could even clearly see the mist particles. His vision penetrated the forest. In the depths, there were large trees that intertwined to form a big goblin cave that looked like a bird's nest. Layers of demonic aura were released outside the tree nest. The demonic aura was too obvious. The Crow King continent was the big goblin world. These big goblins cultivated openly. It was impossible for humans to come here. In order to own this territory, the big goblin naturally released its own demonic aura to warn other big goblins to enter. Their actions were like drawing legs on a snake in front of Su Fang. He did not need to expend much energy to find out the location of the big goblin cave. His perception penetrated the tree nest. It turned out that there were two winged bird monsters. One was hanging upside down, while the other was sucking the corpse of a big goblin. There were many corpses in the surroundings. There was blood everywhere. It was obvious that the two big goblins had killed many of their kind. He came to the top of the tree nest and directly activated the divine image Jade Annulus. Then, he held the Origin sacred mirror in his right hand. The big goblin was only suppressed by the power of the Tao artifact when it took control of the tree nest. It let out a ferocious cry and shattered the tree nest. Its demonic body began to grow in size. Su Fang didn't even need to use the primordial chaos sacred mirror. Instead, he turned the two big goblins' demonic fire into an invisible force that crushed the two big goblins into the ground. The surrounding trees were also reduced to dust. Door of mysterious yellow. A door shot out from his eyes. Together with the Tao treasure, it spat out distorted yellow light and a suction force that easily sucked the two great demons into the yellow door. As long as I don't encounter a big goblin like the immortal toad, there's no need for the primordial sacred mirror. Even if it's that kind of peerless big goblin, I can definitely suppress it with my strength. He hadn't recovered from his injuries yet. At most, he was only at 50%. Summoning the primeval origin sacred mirror was just a precaution. If it wasn't for his injuries, he wouldn't even need to activate the divine image Jade Annulus to suppress the big goblin like the old toad immortal. As for these two bird monsters, he didn't even need to use a single move to suppress them. After searching for a while in the broken lair, he found a few ordinary Dharma treasures and a lot of spirit stones. After that, he crossed the mountain range. After less than 100 miles, he sensed the aura of a powerful big goblin. This big goblin was very powerful. Its strength was stronger than the sky snow flying raccoon, the water snake big goblin, and the heaven domain snow lion. Moreover, there were more than 10 big goblins around it. They were about the same strength as the two bird monsters that were suppressed earlier. When he arrived at this huge mountain, it looked like a huge heart. Many mountain peaks and forests seemed to grow out of the void. Together with the faint, violent aura, this place looked like a place of death. To catch bandits first. King silently arrived at the highest peak of the mountain. There was a huge, blood-red cave that looked like an eye staring at Su Fang. I guess this big goblin is the overlord of this generation. He floated above the cave and used the power of the world to combine the Tao of illusion and the Tao of reality. He combined the power of the shackles with the power of the Tao artifact and gradually merged it with the array formation around the demon cave. The big goblin also set up an array formation. However, This array formation was only at the level of the imperishable realm in front of Su Fong. After a while, a burst of anger suddenly came from the depths of the cave. "Who is it?" A fierce, giant demon roared. Thunder burst out. A human-shaped big goblin, burning with demonic chi flames, rushed out of the cave. "Suppress." Su Fong casually grabbed at the entrance of the cave with his 5 fingers. The big goblin, which had just flown out, was suppressed by the power of the Tao artifact before half of its body could fly out of the cave. It was directly pressed to the ground, unable to move. The big goblin burst out with demonic patterns. It seemed like it was going to demonize and break free from the shackles. It was a large and burly fellow, but even though it tried to demonize, it wasn't able to move at all under the shackles. It helplessly stared at Su Fong with unwillingness. Who are you?" Su Fong released the door of heaven and earth and landed on top of the big goblin. He asked coldly, "Do you see me as a human?" The big goblin's voice trembled. "Humans are despicable. I am the Luo Shan King. This king controls this area. This king is the sworn brother of the brute force demon king. If you dare to touch me, he will not forgive you." The Luo Shan King does not sound very mighty. There's also the brute force demon king. That's right. I'm going to suppress you. Ha! It would have been better if the Luo Shan King did not say anything. However, once it said that there was a big goblin behind it, Su Fong immediately burst out with his power and sucked it into the door of heaven and earth. King. In less than 10 breaths, there was a sudden movement from below the demon mountain. Waves of demonic chi flew up from the depths. These normal big goblins are not bad. I'll catch one of them. Su Fong projected the divine aura of the world down invisibly. Then he activated his divine aura and merged it with the divine aura of the Tao artifact. He directly used the dragon snake tornado. When he saw a wave of demonic chi, he released a tornado in the air. The tornado was like an illusion cloud rope. It accurately caught the demonic chi and wrapped a big goblin tightly. No matter how violent these big goblins were, they were no match for the Luo Shan King in front of Su Fong. In just a few moves, more than 10 big goblins were suppressed in the air and thrown into the door of heaven and earth. Su Fong came to the demon cave and found dozens of Dharma treasures that belonged to human cultivators. There were also many spiritual items, especially the imperishable flower, demon core flower, some spiritual fruits, and spiritual water. After keeping all of them, Su Fong sat on the white bone throne. He pressed his palm, and a wave of demonic chi obediently and uneasily appeared in front of Su Fong. It was the mighty Luo Shan King. It immediately knelt down and kowtowed to Su Fong. "Exalted immortal, please spare my life. Exalted immortal, please spare my life." Su Fong casually rolled up his sleeves. "I won't kill you. From now on, you will work for me. Tell me everything about the brute force demon king." The Luo Shan King was instantly discouraged. I'm not even the brute force demon king's sworn brother." "Continue." I'm not the brute force demon king's sworn brother. However, I'm one of his subordinates. 10,000 years ago, I was suppressed by him and became the guardian of this territory. This brute force demon king is very strong. He has a lifespan of tens of thousands of years. He's an old monster that won't die. He was originally a bear demon. Later on, he cultivated into a bear spirit. His divine strength allowed him to kill many big goblins. He is one of the strongest bear demons on the Crow King continent. The experts under him are also bear demons. The brute force demon king is the demon king that oversees the Crow King continent. His strength cannot be compared to the demon kings in the deeper regions. However, his divine strength is still very strong. He controls thousands of big goblins. These big goblins are all given various kinds of artifacts. The brute force demon king has a shocking amount of wealth. He has tens of thousands of artifacts. He even enjoys human female slaves and absorbs the brains of human cultivators. His brain power is also very strong. With one palm strike, I will definitely be turned into a meat patty. Furthermore, he has fused with a weapon that belongs to humans, the double-headed spiritual thunderhammer. It is a very powerful king-grade artifact. Together with his divine strength, he can dominate this region. Even the big goblin in the deeper regions will not easily provoke him. Great King Luo Shan explained the power of the brute force Demon King. Su Fong was also shocked. Although this brute force Demon King's strength was about the same as the old Immortal's cave, this person allowed his subordinates to have artifacts. He also cultivated for tens of thousands of years to be able to establish himself as a Demon King. His overall strength was at least at the level of a 9-segment Earth Dragon. If the old Immortal Toad did not use his Tao artifact, his strength would only be slightly stronger than the brute force Demon King. Wait obediently. Su Fong suddenly sat cross-legged and did not move, like a pine tree. Great King Luo Shan was really obedient. He knelt on the ground and waited. His eyes were filled with uneasiness. After about an hour, Su Fong still spoke with certainty. "Can you go and meet the brute force Demon King?" "Of course I can. The brute force Demon King has set a rule that every 10 years, I have to bring treasures to meet him. It cannot be earlier or later. If I break the rule, there will be endless trouble. I will give you treasures and let you escort me to meet the brute force Demon King." This. Great King Luo Shan was shocked after hearing that. He was completely doubting if he had heard wrongly. "Don't think that I am really seeking death. Serve me well. If you are not obedient, I can kill you with just a finger. Come out now and bring me to meet the brute force Demon King. As for what you want to do, I will tell you clearly on the way." "Yes, yes." As Su Fong flashed out of the demon cave, Great King Luo Shan immediately chased after him. He anxiously released his demon aura and entangled Su Fong. Then, he brought Su Fong to the back of the mountain range. Along the way, they saw many big goblin cave residences. There were probably hundreds of big goblin entrenched there. After about 10,000 miles, a huge mountain formed by 9 mountains appeared in front of Su Fong and Great King Luo Shan. The 9 mountains were different in shape and looked like the heads of huge monsters. Great King Luo Shan pointed at the huge mountain and said, "This is the 9 Heads Mountain. It is where the brute force Demon King's cave residences are located. There are 9 cave residences at the top, and it is considered a trading ground. It allows all the big and small demons in this territory to trade for treasures. However, every time you come here, you have to pay a large amount of treasures to the brute force Demon King." He released his senses and realized that there were more than 1,000 big goblins. There were probably more than 3,000 of them. He looked at the huge mountain doubtfully and said, "The 9-Head Mountain's brute force Demon King seems a little out of place. This 9 Heads Mountain was originally the territory of the brute force Demon King's true sworn brother, the 9-Headed Demon King. I have heard of the 9-Headed Demon King before. I heard that he is one of the most powerful demon kings in the Crow King continent." Su Fong recalled the many secrets he had heard about the immortal melody world. Suddenly, it was easy to find some information about the 9-Headed Demon King. He was a famous big goblin. The 9-Headed Demon King is indeed one of the most powerful demon kings in the Crow King continent, or even in this small world. He could defeat the brute force Demon King with just his own body, let alone with his treasures. 10,000 years ago, the brute force Demon King became sworn brothers with the 9-Headed Demon King. In fact, he became the 9-Headed Demon King's underling. The 9-Headed Demon King then killed his way into the continent and killed many demon kings. He rebuilt his cave abode and became the overlord of the continent. I will deal with this brute force Demon King first. Do you think the 9-Headed Demon King will come to help? Of course he will. The 9-Headed Demon King is very protective of his underlings. Moreover, this 9 Heads Mountain was once his cave abode. Dealing with the brute force Demon King is equivalent to dealing with him. Won't he come? This is called breaking bones and tendons. Jiang felt a slight headache. It would be difficult to deal with the brute force Demon King. Now, there was another huge threat, the 9-Headed Demon King. However, he came here to suppress the big goblin and increase his strength. Even if he encountered a big goblin with strength close to that of an immortal, he could not back down. He estimated that the nine-headed demon king's strength was at the same level as the immortal toad. He immediately flew out of the forest with King Luo Shan and towards the Nine Heads Mountain. After a while, above the forest, above the demonic fog, there were more than 10 big goblins in human form. They held treasures and blocked the two of them in midair. Chapter 716. Luo Shan King controlled Su Fong with one hand and pointed at the big goblin with the other. He said arrogantly, "You don't recognize this king anymore?" These big goblins were scared out of their wits. A majestic big goblin waved his saber and said with a smile, "Of course I recognize you, king." However, this human, Luo Shan King, did not give him any face. "This is a cultivator that this king has just captured. He dared to be impudent in the demon race's territory, so I captured him and offered his brain to the demon king. Bring me to the demon king. I have something important to discuss with you, king." "Yes, yes." Two big goblins opened up a path for Luo Shan King and Su Fong to walk in front. They immediately flew towards the outer peaks of the Nine Heads Mountain. After passing through the peaks, there was a demonic aura in the depths. There were demonic caves everywhere, one after another. Some big goblins had reverted back to their original forms and were sleeping on the ground. There were no humans. There were only powerful big goblins of different forms. Some were hibernating, some were sleeping, and some were cultivating, releasing layers of burning demonic flames. Deeper into the depths, there was a huge mountain in the middle. There was a palace, and it was a Dharma treasure that was similar to a cave abode. This kind of cave abode Dharma treasure was a treasure. Although the quality was not high, it was something that every cultivator wanted. With it, one could establish a foothold in any natural stronghold. This cave abode was where the demon King Brute Force's cave abode was located. This person really had countless treasures. The surrounding big goblins all lived in primitive cave abodes. He was the only one who enjoyed a mobile cave abode. There were no big goblins patrolling the surrounding sky. Was there a need for patrolling? There were big goblins everywhere. There was also a huge cave in the mountains. This was the Nine Heads cave abode. It was where the demon King Brute Force controlled the big goblin in this territory. It usually gathered and traded treasures. From time to time, giant demons would enter and leave the cave. The cave was 1,000 feet tall, and just one look at it would cause one's body to shiver. At this moment, the closer they got to the Golden Cave, the Brute Force Monster King secretly sent a voice transmission. "Master, in front of us is the Brute Force Monster King's cave. Once we enter, we must find a way to suppress it. Otherwise, if it shackles the cave, it can instantly seal us." Listening to the voice of his thoughts, he was trembling slightly. It seemed that he was in a state of panic. There were more than a dozen big goblins guarding the cave. Each of them had the strength of a feather transformation realm cultivator. Although they were not as strong as King Luo Shan, they were not much weaker. When they landed in front of the cave abode, two big goblins with bloodstains on their skin came forward to inquire. The brute force demon monarch said loudly, "I'm here to pay my respects to the king. I respectfully offer my treasures and this human cultivator for the king to enjoy." "I'll report this." One of the big goblins turned and entered the hall. The other big goblin was much taller than King Luo Shan. "Brother Luo Shan, you came to offer your treasures a few years ago. This time, you're here again. Your luck is not bad." King Luo Shan warmly tried to worm his way into being friends with the other party. "It's not like you don't know. The treasures that I offered the previous few times were not as good. This time, I finally got some treasures after much difficulty. I have to please the king." "All right, brother, what important matters has the king been busy with recently? He can still go deeper and meet with the nine-headed king. Then he could buy 2 human female cultivators from there. These days, the king is either cultivating or enjoying beautiful women. Human beauties. Any one of them is worth a king-grade artifact. The king is rich and can do whatever he wants. With the nine-headed king controlling him from behind, isn't it easy for the king to get 2 human female cultivators within a few years? The king has tamed the beauties. One of them conquered the king forcefully the moment she arrived. The other one actually has a strange artifact protecting her. It can resist the king's attacks for a while. Although the king can take her down in the end, that woman can use her young soul and can commit suicide at any time. The king can't do anything to her for the time being. After the big goblin finished speaking, he happily stretched out his hand. Why don't you share some of your wealth with your brother? That's right, that's right. King Luoshan took out some pure essence pills and gave them to the other party unwillingly. The big goblin then pretended to lead them to the front of the main hall. After about an hour, another big goblin came out and gestured for King Luoshan to bring Su Fong into the main hall. The moment they stepped into the main hall, they couldn't sense the aura of the outside world. This was because this was an artifact that was isolated from the outside world. Stepping into this place was equivalent to being trapped inside the artifact. The main hall was decorated extravagantly. It was either gold or silver, various gems, and spiritual items. After passing through the main hall's array formation and entering the second array formation, they found themselves in a garden. King. In the middle of the garden was a pool. Demonic aura filled the air. At this moment, there were two naked people inside. It was a man and a woman. The man was about 30 years old. He was the brute force demon king. He was originally a bear demon, but in his human form, he was actually a handsome man. His skin was like jade, fairer and smoother than the woman beside him. As for the woman, she was slightly over 20 years old. Her cultivation level was not high. She was only in the catastrophe realm. She was personally feeding the brute force demon king a spiritual fruit. The brute force demon king gestured for the woman to put on a silver sand shawl. He flashed, and a set of golden armor appeared on his body. He suddenly landed on the ground and turned to sit on the throne. King Luoshan, you are here. King. King Luoshan abandoned Su Fong and hurriedly went forward alone. He then bowed to the brute force demon king. I was lucky this time. Not only did I capture a human cultivator, but I also obtained many of his treasures. I came here personally to offer them to the king. This king needs to suck the brains and blood essence of human cultivators. The brute force demon king glanced at Su Fong sinisterly and sent out a thought. After a while, the woman from before appeared with a woman whose entire body was sealed by demon patterns. At the same time, two strong men escorted a male cultivator to the center. The brute force demon king looked at the woman from before and glanced at the expressionless woman who was shackled. Prepare 4 blood bowls. Bring them over. King Luoshan took the opportunity to greet the shackled cultivator and the two big goblin. The two big goblin escorted the cultivator to kneel in front of the brute force demon king. The woman in the silver sand shawl brought over 4 blood bowls made of blood jade. The male cultivator was not allowed to speak. The brute force demon king slapped the top of his head. The top of his head shattered, revealing a small bloody hole. The male cultivator instantly stopped moving, but his body continued to tremble. The brute force monster king shot out a strand of demonic chi from the bloody hole on top of the cultivator's head, extracting the bloody brain matter that looked like a fried dough twist. The brain was still steaming, and some of the blood vessels supporting the brain were still trembling slightly. The brute force demon king handed one of the 4 blood bowls to King Luoshan, took one for himself, and handed the other 2 to the woman in the silver sand shawl. The brute force demon king raised his head and laughed. This is the most delicious food. It can strengthen the big goblin's body, condense the young nascent soul, and strengthen the foundation. King Luoshan, this bowl is for you. Thank you, King, for your reward. King Luoshan hurriedly swallowed the brain. The brute force demon king also swallowed it and licked his lips. Thank you, master, for your reward. The woman in the silver sand shawl actually swallowed such a bloody brain and even winked seductively at the brute force demon king. The brute force demon king suddenly stared at the trembling female cultivator holding the blood bowl. Let her swallow it too. The woman in the silver sand shawl grabbed the woman's wrist with one hand and grabbed the blood bowl with the other. Oh, my good sister, you are no longer a cultivator of the Burning Heavensword sect. Forget your previous identity. We sisters are of one mind. If we serve the king well, We can still cultivate. The female cultivator refused to open her mouth. In the end, the woman in the silver sand shawl urged her magic power and forced her to open her mouth, swallowing the brain bit by bit on the spot. The brute force demon king laughed and said, "Ha ha, this king, don't believe that I can't take down a little human girl like you." The two big goblins from before suddenly strode towards Su Fong. They also detained Su Fong and brought him in front of the brute force demon king step by step. The brute force demon king looked at Su Fong with disdain. "Eighth level of the Calamity Realm. Your cultivation is not bad." This king still thinks that the taste of devouring the brain and heart of a human Ascension Realm expert would be more delicious. The woman in the silver sand shawl suddenly came to the side. Under the transparent shawl, her proud and mysterious body could be seen. "If the king likes to eat hearts, then I will personally gouge out his heart." The brute force demon king suddenly grabbed the woman's buttocks and slapped them until they shook. "This servant is really obedient. This king will not treat you badly in the future. This king also hopes to see you humans kill each other. Haha." King Luo Shan suddenly took a step forward. "Wait a minute, king. This subordinate has a good treasure. Wouldn't it be better to take a look at the treasure first before enjoying the delicacies? Is that so? All right, the two of you can leave first." After summoning the two big goblins out of the garden, the brute force demon king stood up after King Luo Shan deliberately tried to curry favor with him. He even turned around and chatted with King Luo Shan. At this moment, the brute force demon king's back was facing Su Fong. "Sister, I am advising you out of goodwill. Don't be so ungrateful. You have already ended up like this. What else do you want?" The woman in the silver sand shawl squatted down and looked at the woman sitting on the ground. There was still blood at the corner of the woman's mouth. She kept persuading her. "Master." At this moment, Su Fong heard the voice of King Luo Shan's thoughts. "Buzz." The shackled Su Fong strangely split into two avatars. One avatar held the primordial chaos sacred mirror, while the other unleashed the power of the 9 suns. When the woman in the silver sand shawl saw this scene, she immediately turned pale. "What's wrong?" The brute force demon king seemed to sense that something was amiss. King Luo Shan chuckled and released a large amount of treasure light in time. "Big goblin, what's wrong? Look, these are all very high-quality Dharma treasures that have reached the king grade. There are more than 100 of them." A red beam shot out from the ancient mirror. Whoosh! In the blink of an eye, it swept up the brute force demon king from behind like the autumn wind sweeping up fallen leaves. Seal! Su Fong's true body suddenly shattered the demon rune seal. While his avatar was controlling the brute force demon king, his true body struck out Dharma's seals. A layer of barrier immediately sealed the garden they were in. Who is who? The brute force demon king, who was shackled by the red beam, seemed to have lost its center of gravity. It was as light as a feather and could not resist at all. Instead, it roared crazily. "Save me!" Only then did the woman in the silver sand shawl react and shout to the surroundings. Smack! Su Fong dodged and struck her on the back with a palm strike, causing her to lose consciousness. Looking at the woman in the silver sand shawl, Su Fong shook his head and did not pity her at all. "It's fine for a person like you to live an ignoble life, but you have lost your humanity. How are you any different from Beast? Come in." With a wave of his hand, the red beam easily moved the brute force demon king into the immortal light of the Tao artifact. The big goblin instantly disappeared with the immortal light. Buzz! Buzz! Suddenly, the entire cave abode began to shake slightly and vibrate. I forgot that this cave abode has already been merged with the brute force demon king. He is shackled in the Tao artifact space, which is equivalent to forcing him to lose his connection with the cave abode, causing the cave abode to start moving. Great king, what's happening inside?" All of this happened in a flash. Suddenly, a demonic aura came from the surroundings of the garden. Many big goblin experts surrounded the garden and shouted inside. Chapter 717. Su Fong immediately gave the Luo Shan king a look. The latter circled around and shouted angrily. What are you all arguing about? The king is fusing with a strange treasure. This treasure is extremely powerful. If you all continue arguing and distract the king, he will swallow you all alive. Retreat and wait for the decree. All of you retreat. This move really worked. The Luo Shan king was an expert by the brute force demon king's side. With his order and timely appearance, the surrounding big goblin would naturally believe him. On the other hand, the brute force demon king would not be in trouble in his own territory. The Luo Shan king came in front of Su Fong, his legs trembling. Master, it has been settled. Su Fong controlled the enchantment around them, causing the interior to be completely silent. He also praised the Luo Shan king. You have done well. I will reward you in the future. If you want any treasures from the brute force demon king, just say the word. I only hope that master will not take my life. Kiki. Su Fong came to the stone seat at the back. After sitting down, he looked at the girl beside him, who still did not understand what was going on. Suddenly, Su Fong thought of the burning Heaven Sword sect. It seemed like this was fate. After coming to the immortal melody world, the few of them settled down in the burning Heaven Sword sect's territory. Who knew that they would meet a female cultivator from the burning Heaven Sword sect in the distant Crow King continent? Whoosh! An invisible force pulled the girl in front of him. When the girl saw Su Fong, her beautiful face paled. After Su Fong circulated his qi, a force of control entered the girl's demon Dao seal. Seeing that she was uneasy, Su Fong smiled and comforted her. Don't worry, I'm also a human cultivator. Now, I will release your demon Dao seal and help you recover from your injuries. After that, I will bring you out of here. The girl relaxed a little after hearing that, but her delicate body was still tense. It turned out that the girl's cultivation was not weak. She had reached the high level of the Ascension realm and was close to the great elder strength. Such an expert should be a big shot in the burning Heaven Sword sect, but why did she fall into the nine-headed demon king's hand? Thinking about how powerful the nine-headed demon king was, she knew that she would not be a match for the big goblin if she were to encounter the big goblin. Su Fong didn't want to know too much about it, in case Wanjin had other ulterior motives. When the seal disappeared and the woman regained her freedom, Su Fong sucked her into the flaming cloud's spiritual gourd. It's your turn, brute force archfiend. At this moment, Su Fong released a beam of immortal light. The appearance of this immortal light caused King Luo Shan to retreat a few steps in fright. The brute force demon king was also shackled and suppressed by the Su Fong. In order to prevent it from resisting, it was covered in sealing enchantments from the divine image Jade Annulus. It was completely suppressed, and it could only struggle to move. Bang! Both its legs trembled, and the brute force demon king was forced to kneel on the ground by the pressure of the Tao artifact. Rings of dust were kicked up. It angrily shouted at Su Fong, "You better let go of this king, or you will offend the entire demon race. No matter which side of the immortal melody world you are from, they will skin you alive. You don't have to worry about my safety if I let you go. Instead, you should think about yourself. In your current situation, killing you is as easy as crushing a grasshopper. What treasure do you want from this king? I have to tell you that everything about you, including your cave abode, will have the same surname as mine, Su. You have been suppressed by me. I will refine you into a walking corpse, a puppet, or even kill you. I will take your spiritual pearls, bones, and essence blood. These are all my freedom. I can control you, but you can't control your fate. What do you want to do?" After hearing this, the brute force demon king was also an experienced and knowledgeable big goblin. It could only take another step back. Su Fong's face was cold and heartless. "I will suppress you, and then you will be my little commander like King Luo Shan. You will work for me. This is your way of survival." The brute force demon king suddenly glared at him. "I am the brute force demon king. As long as you are in the immortal melody world, this king will become your slave." "You are too naive." Su Fong slowly stood up. "I don't have much time. What are you thinking? What are you waiting for? Do you think I don't know that this cave abode was activated when I suppressed you? I reckon some big goblin will sense this. Soon, experts will come, right? Since you are disobedient, I can only force you to obey. True demon bloodplate, shackle the young nascent soul. Su Fong suddenly attacked. The brute force demon king was so frightened that he thought that Su Fong was going to kill him. He subconsciously closed his eyes, but the true demon blood plate entered his mind and was immediately sealed by demonic patterns. Su Fong then absorbed King Luo Shan into his body and used the bone transformation technique. He transformed into King Luo Shan's appearance. Let's go. He immediately waved at the kneeling brute force demon king. This big goblin obediently stood up and walked in front. They left the barrier together. Great king. Dozens of big goblins were already waiting outside. When they saw the two of them appear, they all knelt down. The brute force demon king glanced around. It's nothing major. This king has fused with a strange treasure, and his strength has increased greatly. Immediately send the order for all the generals and big goblin guards to gather here. They have to be here within a day. Yes. The big goblins did not find anything unusual. They accepted the order and left the cave abode. Humph. Su Fong sneered. In fact, he was secretly controlling the brute force demon king to give orders to the big goblin. Under the protection of the remaining big goblin, Su Fong and the brute force demon king came to the top of the cave abode's main hall and ordered the other big goblins to go down. Brute force demon king, you know how powerful I am. Even if you don't work for me, I can still control your young soul. Your demon body can help me achieve my goals. Think carefully. The next time I ask you if you want to submit, if you don't agree, I can only refine you into a puppet. Su Fong, who had transformed into King Luo Shan, sat down below. However, he secretly gave the brute force demon king a supreme authority. A moment later, the brute force demon king's face and neck were covered in cold sweat. Soon the sweat dripped down. It was obvious that he was terrified of Su Fong. In less than half a day, Big Goblin had gathered outside the cave abode. There were more and more big goblins. Many of them had the status of King Luo Shan. There were already more than 100 of them. In less than a day, a big goblin came to report that there were more than 800 big goblins from all directions. All of them had gathered and were waiting outside for orders. Su Fong also asked the brute force demon king to give orders. He also asked the big goblin cultivating on Nine Heads Mountain to gather the top of the mountain. Only then did the brute force demon king release his authority and allow the big goblin subordinates to enter the cave abode. There were indeed many bear monsters. This time, the big goblin would probably have company. There were close to 100 bear monsters. The rest were demons of all shapes and sizes. Close to 1,000 people came to the center of the cave abode. Even this cave abode could not contain so many big goblin. The brute force demon king sat majestically on top and suddenly said, I called all of you here because this king has obtained a Tao artifact. Tao artifact? When the demons heard this, all of them were dumbfounded. The brute force demon king dominated all of the array formations here, displaying the power of the Overlord Thunder. This Tao artifact is very magical. After this king has fused with it, it can deduce the spiritual pearls and cultivation techniques in the body and find the flaws. This will make it easier for us demon cultivators to cultivate. Today, this king is in a good mood. He took out this Tao artifact and allowed everyone to cultivate in it for 3 days. Just 3 days. Listen up, this is a rare opportunity. After 3 days, it will be impossible for you to enter the Tao artifact. Wow, there was an uproar below. It seemed that no one had expected the brute force demon king to obtain a Tao artifact and give it to everyone to cultivate. And the brute force demon king grabbed at the center. An immortal light, like a door, stood in the center. He waved his arm lightly. Go in. Thank you, king. The big goblin below did not think much at all. With greedy smiles, they rushed toward the immortal light of the Tao artifact. At this moment, in the divine aperture, Yuer activated his supreme divine power and said, Master, this move of yours is very clever. Without using any strength, you can suppress so many big goblin under the brute force demon king. If the brute force demon king had submitted obediently, I would not have thought of this move. Humans will encounter many troubles and bottlenecks in their lives. As long as they calm down and change their perspective, they will be able to think of a way to overcome these difficulties. Su Fong replied calmly. In less than half an incense stick's time, one by one, the great demons took large strides into the door formed by the divine image Jade Annulus. Just like that, one great demon after another blindly entered the divine image Jade Wall on their own accord. This was a Tao artifact. He could also activate his natal treasure and let them enter the Xianhuang Six Paths Pagoda. However, these big goblin were too powerful. If the big goblin attacked as soon as it entered, it would definitely have a huge impact on the Xianhuang Six Paths Pagoda, which was still at the king grade. Moreover, it was Su Fong's natal treasure. He had only recovered half of his injuries. If he used his energy to control so many big goblins, he might have to delay his recovery time. Soon, a big goblin disappeared from the main hall. Under Su Fong's control, the brute force demon king roared. Pass down the order. Let all the brothers outside in. After a while, a large number of big goblins entered the main hall. This time, there were more than 1,000 big goblins. Their overall strength was between the Ascendant Transformation Realm and the Catastrophe Realm. Even if they reached the Ascendant Transformation Realm, they were still weaker than the Luoshan King. These were all the brute force demon king's underlings. All of you, enter the Tao artifact. I'll let you cultivate inside for a few days. The brute force demon king did not need to explain to these ordinary underlings. He gave an order, and the big goblin trembled in fear. Curious about the Tao artifact, they all entered one by one. When Su Fong saw this scene, he also found it hard to believe. At first, he thought that he would have to pay a high price to deal with the brute force demon king. However, he did not expect such a change. He did not even need to do anything. The brute force demon king's nest was wiped out. After 5 minutes, more than 1,000 big goblins obediently entered the divine image Jade Wall space. In just one day, he had suppressed more than 2,000 big goblins. The divine image Jade Wall was a supreme Tao artifact. It was not afraid of 2,000 big goblins. Even if there were several times more of them, it would still be the same. It's time to go, brute force demon king. Su Fong suddenly rolled up and teleported the brute force demon king out of the cave. In a flash, he appeared above the moving golden palace. Naturally, he wanted this golden palace. However, there were still some patrolling big goblin around. He could not catch them all in one go. Furthermore, he had to leave Nine Head Mountain as soon as possible. Form. The brute force demon king flew 100 feet away. After forming a seal, he opened his mouth and spat out a demonic light. The golden palace below began to tremble and shake. Great King, what are you doing? A few patrolling big goblin sensed the commotion in the surroundings. The brute force demon king ignored them and continued to collect the golden palace. The golden palace separated from the mountain and began to shrink. Buzz! At this moment, just as the golden palace separated from the mountain, in the depths of the golden palace, where it merged with the mountain, there was a black hole. This hole was perfectly hidden, and a pair of demonic eyes flickered a few times. Suddenly, the demonic eye ruler's demonic aura took advantage of the golden palace's shaking to transform into 9 demonic swords. They teleported past the brute force demon king and swept towards Su Fong. Master! The divine image Jade Wall released a blinding Tao light. Boundless divine might turned into a defense. The moment the 9 demonic swords pierced towards it, it enveloped Su Fong. Chapter 718. The 9 demon swords had perfectly fused with the cave abode. If there was any movement in the cave abode, the swords would be awakened. Furthermore, the swords had perfectly fused with the 9 Heads Mountain. Fortunately, the Tao artifact had covered Su Fong in time. The brute force demon king, who was absorbing the cave abode, saw that the swords were about to kill Su Fong. He felt that Su Fong was dead meat. Bang! The 9 demon swords did not give any chance. They struck the area around the Tao artifact's defense and tried to swallow Su Fong. However, it was a Tao artifact. No matter how powerful the swords were, they could only break Su Fong's defense. However, The Tao artifact's godly aura dissipated most of the sword's power. The impact caused Su Fong to tremble violently. He spat out mouthfuls of blood. The surrounding space was almost shattered. The brute force Demon King looked at the 9 shadows left behind by the 9 demon swords. Brother, brother, save me. Su Fong felt that he was once again in a state of severe injuries. His body was trembling as he thought to himself, so it's the willpower of the 9-headed Demon King's clone. If not for the protection of my Tao artifact, I would have died under this power. It can't save you. It's just a willpower. Even if the real body comes, it can't kill me. Brute force Demon King, you are indeed dishonest. Let's go. He was worried that the real body of the 9-headed Demon King would come. He immediately activated the godly aura of the world to suppress the remaining power of the 9-headed Demon King and absorb it into his palm. He then activated the godly aura of the Tao artifact to suck the brute force Demon King into the air. Save the king. Only then did the surrounding greater demons realize what was going on. As they charged forward, they saw Su Fong using minor teleportation to shoot through the air. In the blink of an eye, Su Fong flew continuously and left the Wuwang continent. His body was controlled by the godly aura of the Tao artifact. His speed became faster and faster. Soon, he flew across the water and arrived at the human cultivation world. 1 hour later, he arrived at the Burning Sky Sword Sect's territory. Cough! Su Fong appeared in the middle of the Burning Sky Sword Sect's Burning Sky Sword Sect. The Burning Heaven Sword Sect was right in front of him. He activated a Xian Guang, and the woman who was rescued before appeared in a panic. When she saw that she was in the Burning Heaven Sword Sect, she immediately cried tears of joy. But by the time she came back to her senses, Su Fong was nowhere to be seen. After she recovered from her shock, she immediately flew towards the depths of the earth. Not too far away, Su Fong was flying through the air in exhaustion. His body was clearly in a state of being torn apart. The more confused his consciousness was, the slower his speed was compared to a mortal's. You activated the Tao artifact's divine aura in his divine aperture and protected Su Fong. At the same time, he kept cheering for Su Fong's powerless young infant. Master, hold on for a little longer. The canyon's array formation is just ahead. The 9-headed Demon King's attack was too sudden. Although you managed to defend against it in time, it was still too late. My body, which had just recovered, was severely injured again. You are Russell, but just as he finished speaking, his body lost its balance and fell from the clouds into the forest below. From the sound of the sea of trees breaking the silence, many branches were broken, and leaves fell from the sky. The gravity was very shocking. Poof! In the depths of the forest was a small stream. Su Fong fell right into the stream, creating an astonishing splash that splashed in all directions, breaking the silence of the forest. I might have to sleep for a while. Half of Su Fongdao's body was submerged in the water. His eyes slowly closed, and the mottled light fell on his body. He felt like a rock on the surface of the water. In his divine aperture, Su Fong's consciousness remained in a cross-legged state. He gave one last instruction to you before he slowly closed his eyes and fell into a deep sleep. His body floated in the stream. Not long after, the cold wind from the forest blew, causing him to sway on the surface of the water. Unknowingly, there was a sudden rainstorm, and it quickly turned into a mountain storm. The stream immediately swelled up, and Su Fong's body slowly flowed downwards with the current. After floating for a few months from the forest to the mountain range, and then into the forest, he suddenly fell from the sky with the stream. It turned out that this was a waterfall. Luckily, the waterfall was only about 10 feet tall. Below, it was a hidden lake surrounded by forests and mountains. PFFF. Su Fong fell into the water again, and the water splashed everywhere. Until his entire body floated up, he breathed naturally, following the rhythm of nature and breathing slowly. After floating for a while, he gradually floated to the shore with the water. Swish, swish. When Su Fong was still some distance away from the shore, there was a barren cliff under the hidden mountains of the forest. There was an enchantment around the cliff. The enchantment should be a sensing formation and used to sense spiritual energy. Inside, there was a young girl in white clothes. She was holding a peachwood sword inlaid with gems and practicing sword techniques in the air. The young girl's sword technique was as graceful as her figure. It could be said that she was as gentle as water, without any killing intent. Clearly, she was also a cultivator. However, the aura she released was like a lady from a noble family, and practicing the sword was like embroidery. So in air, suddenly, a middle-aged woman floated over and directly flashed into the formation. The middle-aged woman was holding a cold weapon. The scabbard seemed to be made of ice, and if it was released, it could directly freeze a cultivator. She was a strong cultivator. The middle-aged woman stopped the young girl and said seriously, "Your sword technique is too soft and smooth. Master, my sword is not used to kill people." The young girl hurriedly bowed to the middle-aged woman. She looked thin and weak, but she dared to refute. "You've cultivated for quite a few years. I saw that your temperament was docile, so I let you stay in the sect. Although you've participated in quite a few missions, after all these years of forging, your sword hasn't changed in the slightest. The cultivation world is not a rural village, and those cultivators are not commoners. If you continue to cultivate the sword Tao like this, once you go out and encounter a powerful enemy, you'll definitely die. Let alone outsiders. Even your senior apprentice brothers and senior apprentice sisters will easily kill you. Sonaire, you have to remember Master's words. Sword." The middle-aged woman's words were sincere and earnest. She seemed to be a sharp person, but she was actually deeply concerned. She released the cold sword in her hand. The sword is used to kill people. If you treat it as a tool, you'll never be able to learn a profound sword technique. If you're too kind, even if you surpass me, you won't be able to gain a foothold in the cultivation world. Even in my heaven-burning sword sect, you won't be able to gain a foothold. In the end, you'll be replaced by others. Disciple will work hard. Sun Air bowed once more. In a while, it'll be the day your senior apprentice brothers and senior apprentice sisters will compete. The winner will become the sovereign and the upper echelon of the sect. You won't have this opportunity every year. Properly cultivate. In the end, the middle-aged woman seemed to compromise. She shook her head and disappeared without a trace. Sword. A sword that kills. Could it be that my sword can't save people and become a sword that saves people? Perhaps Master is right. I might never be able to cultivate this sword that saves people. Sun Air composed herself for a while. Suddenly, she felt sweat all over her body. She sucked the peachwood sword into her palm, leaving behind a green sword mark on her wrist. She walked out of the formation and walked to the shore step by step. Just as she crouched down, she suddenly cried out in fright. She then used the illusion cloud rope in a fluster and wrapped it around the water. It wrapped Su Fong up like a dumpling and rolled him up. Is he dead? Sun Air's expression returned to normal. She walked over to Su Fong, who was floating in the air. Bound by the illusion cloud rope, Su Fong was sleeping very soundly. She bent her finger and slowly touched Su Fong's palm. Then she suddenly withdrew her finger and let out a sigh of relief. He's still alive. He's still alive. After calming her breathing, she brought Su Fong into the formation. She took out spirit stones and created a formation for Su Fong. She guided spiritual chi into the space. Then she took out a high-grade pure essence pill and fed it to Su Fong. He's not immortal. He should be a cultivator. But why are his injuries so serious? He feels like a mortal. His true chi is too weak. But he doesn't seem to have a gene Dan. I can't sense his cultivation base. That's not very good. Probing someone's gene Dan without their permission is too impolite. But I'll forget about it. He wants to be a fellow disciple of the sword sect, but he shouldn't be. Sun Air was still planning on thoroughly checking Su Fong's cultivation base and whether or not they were from the same sect. In the end, she gave up and let Su Fong sleep in the formation space. She went to the periphery of the formation and went to the shore to wash up. Then, she returned to the formation. After sitting cross-legged, she took out the peachwood sword and looked around. She frowned. The senior who passed me the treasure sword said, that the sword of saving people could help me achieve the supreme great Tao. But why haven't I comprehended the Tao of saving people after thousands of years of cultivation? If this goes on, I can't persist any longer. I can only cultivate the killing sword technique passed down by Master. Then, I can be as powerful as Senior Martial Brother and Senior Martial Sister. I can kill the big goblin and protect the sect. The young girl Sun Er was very sad. Her eyes were wet. Master, behind them, in the center of the formation. At some point, Su Fong was no longer lying in the air. Instead, he was sitting cross-legged. In the divine aperture, Yer, who suddenly saw Su Fong's young infant moving. He immediately called out to it. The young infant slowly opened its eyes. Although it looked tired, it still felt natural. I was woken up by the female cultivator in front of me. Su Fong's first sentence was to look in front of the female cultivator. His daughter said, "That's a cultivator who has just reached level 1 of the immortal transformation realm. She can be considered a strong cultivator. However, she doesn't have the sharpness that a immortal transformation realm cultivator should have. Instead, she looks like someone who has just started cultivating. There's no one like her in the world of cultivation." After sighing, Su Fong started to activate the 9 Suns' 9 transformations. He swallowed all kinds of resources and recovered quickly. In the time that the woman was comprehending, his recovery was indescribable. Previously, he was severely injured by the 9-headed Demon King. He was almost back to his previous state. Fortunately, he had recovered 30%. If this continued, as long as he cultivated here, he should be able to fully recover in a short period of time. "It's good that you're awake." Sun Er suddenly stood up and turned around. When she saw Su Fong sitting cross-legged, she was so shocked that she quickly raised her sword. However, when she saw that Su Fong did not move, she carefully went up to him. She noticed that Su Fong was more natural. She could not see any obvious injuries. "I'm awake." Su Fong also opened his eyes at this time. He looked at the girl calmly. "Thank you. This formation helped me to wake up quickly." The girl asked warily, "You're not a disciple of my Burning Heaven Sword sect?" "No, I'm a foreign cultivator. I came to the immortal melody world to find some treasures. However, I was attacked by the big goblin on the Crow King continent. I fled back with serious injuries. When I came to this territory, I could not hold on and fainted. When I woke up, I was here. You still dare to go to the Crow King continent? That's a forbidden land of the immortal melody world. Even large powers like us don't dare to enter that place. Even our elders will be suppressed. Quite a few of my Burning Heaven Sword sect's experts also died there. I was also curious, so I went to take a look. Then you're fine." "No, my injuries are very serious. I estimate that I won't be able to recover in less than 10 years. I might have to rest here for a while. I won't disturb you, right? As long as you stay here obediently, I'll let you stay. However, my Burning Heaven Sword sect's rules are very strict. It's best if you don't wander around. If you meet my master, she'll definitely kill you." "How can I wander around? It's hard for me to even breathe. Thank you for taking me in." Su Fong nodded and closed his eyes with difficulty. He crazily used all kinds of methods to recover. Chapter 719. Sword training. At first, Sun Er was still secretly on guard, worried that Su Fong had bad intentions. However, he had been sitting cross-legged for several years, unmoving like a boulder. Only then did he gradually believe it. "Not good. My master is here. You have to hide outside." On this day, Sun Er suddenly rushed over from the outer formation, looking nervous. Within the spell formation, Su Fong stopped cultivating and rose to his feet to look around. "Right, go to the nearby valley. Master won't suspect you there. Let's go." Before Su Fong could catch his breath, Sun Er suddenly pulled Su Fong and flew out of the formation. They flew over a mountain peak and arrived at a valley shrouded in clouds, isolated from the rest of the world. After landing, this was not a place without people. Instead, there were all kinds of grass huts, wooden houses, and some mortals walking around. Most of them were digging up the soil and weeding. Wasn't this just a small village? These people are the mortals I saved. They have nowhere to go, so I made a home for them here. You can recuperate here and get along with everyone. Don't think you can bully them just because you're a cultivator. I won't forgive you. Sunair suddenly raised her sword and glared at Su Fong. Then she turned and flew into the air. A few old men came to Su Fong and brought him into the valley. Little brother, you were also saved by the fairy. Come, we have more than 100 people here. There are old, young, women, and children, as well as young adults. Everyone used to live in places that were attacked by demons. Our families were scattered. If not for the fairy, we would have died long ago. Indeed, it was as the old men said. Everyone here was immortal. There was not a single cultivator. Everyone met in harmony. There were no quarrels here. If the great world was the immortal world, then this place was a small immortal world for mortals. Su Fong quickly merged with them, but he still found a place deep in the forest to continue recovering. I've already recovered 50%. I estimate that in less than 10 years, I'll be able to return to my peak. Then I'll break through the 8th layer and step into the 9th layer of the Calamity Realm. In order to not let the mortals outside disturb him, Su Fong used the Limitless Clone and formed a clone to guard outside. He would occasionally come into contact with the mortals. After years of continuous recovery, his condition was getting better and better. The dog-headed Rottenwood Saber and the six-eyed Heaven-Shaking Bell are both pretty good treasures. The dog-headed Rottenwood Saber should be suitable for me to use, but forget it. Edgeless Sword has already been destroyed. I'll have to slowly find a powerful offensive magic treasure to use. Originally, he wanted to find a magic treasure to replace the Edgeless Sword. Unfortunately, after searching for a long time, he was unable to find a suitable weapon among the tens of thousands of king-grade magic treasures. The Flaming Cloud Spirit Gourd, the Rakshasa Jade Vase, the Fire Crystal Golem, the Fire God Elephant, the Instant Space Ring, and the True Devil Blood Plate were all defensive treasures. He indeed lacked an offensive treasure that could replace the Edgeless Sword. At the same time, in the Xianhuang Six Paths Pagoda, he began to fuse the golden twin dragon sword he obtained from the third prince with the Six Paths Pagoda. They both had the power of gold and silver, and their quality was roughly the same. After the fusion of the two magic treasures, especially the fusion of the golden sword with the Xianhuang Six Paths Pagoda, his natal magic treasure would gain another type of offensive power. It was not a formation, but a magic treasure. For example, if he wanted to suppress a big goblin and the formation could not subdue it, he could use the golden twin dragon sword to kill it on the spot. Waiting for the golden sword to fuse after entering the Xianhuang Six Paths Pagoda, he found that he could find more gold and silver to forge more gold and silver swords to form a sword formation. It seemed that he would have to collect more gold and silver, as well as Xianhuang Stone and Primordial Jade. Moreover, the Xianhuang Six Path Pagoda still needed a lot of materials before it could be upgraded to a Dao artifact. I have already fused with the third prince's energy. Now, my recovery speed is getting faster and faster. In addition to the massive increase in my true Qi, the origin of the primordial god world and the Emperor's Qi are also incredible. I did not expect that the few times I came into contact with the Xinyuan Empire, I would obtain a large amount of the Xinyuan Empire's origin. Since the Xinyuan Empire wants to take my mortal emperor world, then why don't the Su Fong set their sights on your primordial god world and take over your Xinyuan Empire in the future? Now that I have so much origin of the primordial god world, when I reach the Ascension realm in the future and obtain even more origin of the primordial god world, it will not be impossible for me to replace the Xinyuan Empire and control the primordial god world. Because he had fused with the third prince's energy, his recovery speed had increased to another level. He had already recovered 70%. Su Fong was using his golden core as a world to cultivate the way of the emperor. He was slowly fusing with the third prince's golden core. He was absorbing the emperor's qi for free. It meant that the third prince's qi of the emperor had all become his. Su Fong also had the heavenly gourd spirit tree's essence, the black lotus true body, the perfect physical body, the dragon taming wood's left arm, the immortal strength, and various other resources. His recovery speed was already very shocking. Another half a year passed. Suddenly, he heard some movement in the valley. He stopped cultivating and walked out of the valley. He saw some middle-aged women surrounding Sun Air and talking about something. It turned out that Sun Air was in a bad mood. Every once in a while, she would come to the valley to see everyone. This time, her mood was very different from before. Everyone was asking her why. Sun Air quickly recovered her mood. When she saw Su Fong, she asked him to help everyone get rid of weeds. Su Fong suddenly felt like he had returned to Purple Chi Mountain and lived with his clansmen in the temple. Because of this, he gradually integrated into the mortal atmosphere. He busied himself with everyone and felt very comfortable. At night, he even ate with everyone. It was a simple meal, but he felt that it was similar to spirit fruits. Su Fong and Sun Air sat together and watched everyone busy themselves. Both of them had the same smile on their faces. Sun Air suddenly sighed. I used to have such a big family. Unfortunately, they were attacked by demonic beasts and saved only me. If I hadn't met Master, I might have died in the wilderness. Did you encounter something unpleasant today? It seemed like Su Fong was deliberately changing the topic. Master told me to cultivate the killing sword technique and focus on the killing heart. He said that in the future, there would be no place for me in this world. In the end, I would either be killed by the big goblin or by other cultivators. However, I still want to cultivate according to my own ideas. Although I am used to the deception, fighting, and all kinds of bloodshed in this world, I often think that killing is the only choice. Can enemies, hatred, and grievances be resolved through killing? Sun Air seemed to be talking to herself. I feel that the best way to stop killing is to not kill. Therefore, I started to follow my own ideas and search for a cultivation path that can save people. The sword technique I cultivate is to stop killing and save people. However, I have not achieved anything. My senior brothers and sisters have all reached the wing transformation realm. I'm the only one who is cultivating slowly. Should I give up? Su Fong listened and took a long breath. It is impossible for there to be no killing in this world. You also think that my method won't work? Do I have to be like everyone else and keep killing? What I mean is, you have to think of a way. A way? I have not achieved anything after all these years. How can I have a way? Why do you have the idea of saving people? You have to know that in the cultivation world, everyone is in danger. They want to protect themselves and kill people. Back then, when I went out to train, I met an old senior. When he saw that I could not bear to kill a few cultivators who were controlled by demonic aura, he appeared and taught me the way to save people. He said that if I did not kill people, it was to save people. After cultivating for so many years, I still do not understand what it means to save people. Sun Air looked at the mortals around her. I insisted on bringing the mortals here, and Master agreed in the end. But is this saving people? If this is saving people, then wouldn't I have to save all the mortals and build a secluded place? This isn't saving people, this is hiding. I deeply understand that this can save them for a while, but it can't save them forever. Actually, your experience is similar to mine. When I was young, my family was also wiped out. Fortunately, I changed everything step by myself. Similarly, I came to this cultivation world and am used to seeing deception and deception. My hands are also stained with blood. But don't worry, the people I killed were all people who want to kill me. If it had not forced me into a desperate situation, I would not kill them. If you really want to walk a different path, then you should focus on finding it. I feel that saving people starts from killing people. If you do not understand why you have to kill people, then you will not be able to find a way to save people. He suddenly stood up. Recently, I have recovered quite a bit. I can help you practice your sword. Let me see how powerful your burning heaven sword sword techniques are. Sun Air was extremely surprised. Oh, I feel that you are not at the wing transformation realm. Also, you are heavily injured. If you practice sword techniques with me, I am afraid that I will injure you and affect your recovery. I am fine. You need someone to see your weakness. I feel that practicing sword techniques with me will benefit you greatly. Who knows, it might even help you break through your bottleneck. Then let's go to the array. The two immediately flew out of the valley. They arrived at the forest array beside the lake. In front of the cliff, Sun Air's right hand gently grabbed, and a peachwood sword with a wood elemental spirit light appeared. Seeing the peachwood sword, Su Fong could tell that it was not ordinary. What a wood elemental spirit sword! The other flying swords are too tyrannical when killing people. I chose this peachwood sword because I do not want to injure people or even kill people. Buzz! A sword chi appeared in Su Fong's palm. It was not a magic treasure, but a lotus leaf true pattern. It intertwined to form a sword chi. Be careful, my Burning Heaven Sword sect has countless sword techniques. I cultivate the Clearwater sword technique. The sword intent is like water, continuous and unending. If it is powerful, it will form a tyrannical storm. Hua Hua Sun Air took the initiative to attack. She suddenly stood on her tiptoes, as light as a dancing butterfly, and then suddenly became fierce in midair. The peachwood sword exploded with waves of entwined sword chi, turning into a sword wind that wanted to kill Su Fong. Clearwater sword technique. Not bad. Under Su Fong's gaze, Sun Air, who was in the sword wind, slashed out hundreds of sword techniques in a breath. In the end, she fused together such a shocking sword wind. ZZZ in the face of such a powerful attack, Su Fong remained calm and composed. It was as if he had taken root on the spot as he stabbed out with his lotus-shaped sword chi. Countless lotus-shaped sword energy collided with the sword wind with a rumbling sound. After the two sword chi collided, Sun Air suddenly charged out of the colliding sword chi with an imposing aura. She unexpectedly slashed at Su Fong with her sword. Bang! Su Fong also stabbed out with his sword like a dragonfly, skimming the surface of the water. When the swords collided, Sun Air quickened her pace. It was as if she had created countless illusions. In the blink of an eye, the peachwood sword seemed to be everywhere, surrounding Su Fong. Chi! The attack was as fast as lightning. It seemed that there were peachwood swords around her, but the real peachwood sword left her hand and stabbed at Su Fong's right shoulder. Su Fong also dodged the sword with a strange movement technique. However, he was surprised that Sun Air activated the peachwood sword and brandished the sword technique to the extreme. At this moment, her aura merged perfectly with the peachwood sword. When she flashed, the sword chi formed a surging and fierce aura. The sword chi was like a flood, pressing down on Su Fong. Just the sword technique is so extraordinary. If it is activated with a great magical power, it can form a river of sword chi that is hundreds of feet long. He admired it. However, at this moment, Su Fong did something inexplicable. He dodged in time, but in midair, he appeared in front of the sword chi. Oh no! Sun Air cried out in alarm. Puff! But the sword chi pierced into Su Fong's body like lightning. Chapter 720. When the sword pierced Su Fong's body, the sword chi destroyed Su Fong's body like a hot knife through butter. Sun Air screamed and trembled in fear. She quickly suppressed the sword chi, but the peachwood sword still pierced Su Fong's body. The sword chi tore his body apart. Her face was pale, and she let go of the peachwood sword in fear. Tears flowed from the corner of her eyes. No, why didn't you dodge? You have already killed me. Su Fong trembled slightly, but he did not spur out blood. For some reason, he was unusually calm. This is the taste of killing. This is the feeling of killing. Sometimes, killing is not something you can decide. Even if you don't want to kill, you have to kill people. Sun Air could not believe it for a long time. Why my sword? Saving people is your original intention, but killing people is not your intention. Just like those plants that are about to die due to drought, when they encounter a rainstorm, they will be soaked and die. What I mean is a kind of helplessness. This is something that neither man nor the heavens can control. If you are too stubborn, it will instead create this kind of situation. Why don't you take a step back and think of a better way to save people? Your sword can indeed save people, but can also kill people. Furthermore, you have to know the taste of killing people. Only by experiencing this feeling can you come from your heart and save people from killing. The sword that kills people is also a sword that saves people. It is the same as other divine abilities. What kind of cultivation technique lands in the hands of the person will cause different results. Not everyone who cultivates a demonic cultivation technique is evil. This is the same principle as the sword in the hands of the person. Don't cry, all right? I am fine. All of a sudden, Su Fong smiled. You are fine. Sun Er could not believe it. She wiped her tears and looked carefully. It was indeed so. Only then did she realize that Su Fong did not spurt out any blood after being hit by the peachwood sword. It was too abnormal. She exclaimed in shock, Clone! Hua! Another Su Fong appeared at the side. The Su Fong that was hit by the peachwood sword instantly shattered, turning into true chi fragments and finally dust. The mahogany house returned to Sun Er's hands on its own, causing her to tremble for quite a while before she finally believed that Su Fong did not die under her sword. I'm alive and well, but in your heart, you've already experienced death. Your sword is already stained with blood. Perhaps in the future, you'll be able to find a way to save people. Su Fong nodded, like a wisp of cool breeze. Your burning heaven sword sword techniques are indeed not bad. The Clearwater sword technique is executed naturally and smoothly, vast and abundant, but has not reached that kind of extreme. However, to be able to comprehend the essence of the way of the sword after cultivating to the end is also not bad. After hearing this, Sun Er felt like she was hallucinating. Are you a senior? No, I'm not your senior. You've been cultivating for thousands of years. If we're just talking about time, you're still my senior. I still need some time to fully recover. If you have nothing to do during this time, you'll come to me to practice the sword. I'm already at the stage where I've forgotten the moves and only care about the intent. It'll be of great help to you in comprehending the sword Tao. Intent, that's the height of the way of the Tao that can only be comprehended by a giant that's close to ascending. I also comprehended it by accident. Unfortunately, I've cultivated too many divine abilities and too many moves. It's too complicated, so I wanted to find a way to solve this problem. However, I didn't know that by fusing the essences of various techniques, I would accidentally comprehend the power of the Tao. Promise me, you're not allowed to die in the future. All right, I won't die. Even if I die, it'll be a clone. Really promise me. Of course. Then continue to practice the sword with me. You have to tell me the intent that you've fused. All right, that'll depend on your comprehension. Su Fong smiled and nodded, grabbing out a green lotus sword chi. His entire body emitted an aura that was superior to having a sword without a sword. Clang! Clang! Sun Er was not soft-hearted at all. This time, the peachwood sword was not polite. Just like before, it turned into a sky full of sword chi that pierced out. It was as if they were surrounding Su Fong and piercing towards him. Asterisk, 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 burning heaven sword sect. This could only be considered a second-rate sect. The barrier was also very vast, covering a large area of mountains, forests, and lakes. At this moment, in the depths of a mountain range surrounded by lakes, hundreds of disciples were surrounding a barrier on the mountain peak. Inside, 2 male disciples were fighting. Sun Er was also waiting near the barrier. The nearby disciples were all at the catastrophe realm. They were discussing below. This time, the few senior brothers and sisters are competing. It's a rare sight. Whoever gets first place will become the sovereign. I think that senior brother Wang Zhongtian and senior sister Cheng Ying have the most confidence. Senior sister Cheng Ying has a higher chance of winning. She's the #1 disciple under Master. That's not necessarily true. Although senior brother Wang Zhongtian is a man, he's also been heavily nurtured by Master. Moreover, I heard that he recently cultivated an extraordinary sword technique. In short, the other senior brothers and sisters have no hope. Many disciples were staring at the 2 girls. As for Sun Er and the other feather transformation realm experts, they were like passers-by. The formation suddenly shook. One of the feather transformation realm men crashed into the formation barrier and fainted. His flying sword fell to the ground. The other person easily won. Wang Zhongtian. When the fainted man was carried out, a tiger's roar sounded. A man who was not even 40 years old flashed into the formation as a supreme feather transformation realm expert. Many people were staring at the man named Wang Zhongtian. His cultivation was very strong. He had reached the high level of the feather transformation realm. In the Burning Heaven Sword sect, he was definitely a famous person. Sword chi exploded from the array formation again, layer after layer intertwining with each other. Occasionally, the sword chi would turn into flames and burn everything. Coupled with the sword chi's incomparably sharp nature, the sword chi could kill any low-level feather transformation realm cultivator. The fight between the two caused the surrounding disciples to clap and cheer. Junior sister, do you still want to go up and challenge them? Outside the formation, a 24 or 25-year-old woman was standing near Sun Air. She had her hands behind her back and a sword on her back. She was standing next to Sun Air. She seemed to be impatient to enter the formation. Sun Air hastily shook her head. Junior sister doesn't have senior sister's strength. I don't dare to enter the arena, but I still want to go up and try. Don't mind Master's words too much. A few days ago, Master often nagged us that your sword chi was too soft, like embroidery. You probably care about it, so you want to go up and prove yourself. That woman had the heroic aura of a man. If you meet a senior sister, I could go easy on you and protect you. But those senior brothers aren't people who are protective of the fairer sex. You're the last closed-door disciple Master accepted. Master likes you the most. Many thanks for senior sister's teachings, Sun Air respectfully replied. In less than half an incense stick's worth of time, Wang Zhongtian's fiery sword energy broke through his opponent's sword move and pressed his sword against his opponent's neck. He turned to the middle-aged woman at the top of the formation and coldly cupped his fists. Master, the middle-aged woman's supreme, ancient aura swept over her. Who else wants to go up and challenge them? Our sect only has this one spot in the past 1,000 years. If you want to become the sovereign, you'll have to wait another 1,000 years. The woman who had been talking to Sun Air soared into the air. Disciple Cheng Ying is willing to give it a try. Within the formation, Wang Zhongtian condensed his chi and shouted, Senior Sister Cheng, please. Cheng Ying flew into the formation. In an instant, quite a bit of cold chi and sword energy rose around her. Senior Brother Wang's methods are amazing. So many senior brothers and junior brothers have defeated you, but in the end, none of them were senior brothers' match. Recently, senior brother's heaven-burning sword art has broken through another level, reaching the level of heaven and earth bear flame. I heard senior sister is also testing this move, but if you use cold chi in your sword, I'm afraid you won't be able to suppress junior brother's move. Then let's give it a try. Heaven-burning chi. Wang Zhongtian was completely confident, and his ruler's aura rose. After saying that, he activated a large amount of scorching sword chi. He pointed at the air, and with a series of buzzing sounds, he grabbed a large amount of sword energy with both hands. Layers of burning sword chi immediately shot toward Cheng Ying. She was surrounded by burning sword chi. If she touched it, she would probably be burned. Cheng Ying had already activated part of the cold chi around her. In a breath, with her as the center, she continuously formed seals. Waves of cold sword chi condensed in the air and rustled as they slashed toward the burning sword chi. The sword chi of the two experts instantly clashed. Although the two sword chi were in the form of cold and hot, the marks and patterns condensed by the sword chi were the same. Therefore, neither of the two disciples had a clear advantage. After an intense battle, every time the two attacked, there would be thousands of sword chi slashing down. Only winged transformation realm cultivators could condense so many sword chi in an instant. If it was a catastrophe realm cultivator, it would be impossible. These two disciples were the strongest existences in this dojo. They also represented the core strength of the heaven-burning sword sect. They were indeed extraordinary. The sharpness of their attacks almost caused the formation to shatter. Heaven and earth bear flame. An hour later, Wang Zhongtian suddenly bit his finger and formed thousands of seals. Profound earth sword furnace. Cheng Ying also used a powerful move. At this moment, the two huge sword auras started from the internal explosion, causing the formation to be filled with exploding sword stars formed by Zhongming's sword chi. Although it looked like this move, it actually contained countless seals and patterns. This was the peak of the two disciples' cultivation. Otherwise, without such hard work, they would not be able to use such a destructive move. PFFF. A figure was swept away by the sword chi. It was Wang Zhongqian. He almost fell down. He used one hand to suppress the formation's barrier and hurriedly shouted at the figure that was attacking him. Senior sister, I've lost. Cheng-Ying retracted her aura. Junior brother is also very powerful. It's just that senior sister has fused other sword moves on the heaven-burning sword technique. It can be considered a kind of innovation, so I can suppress junior brother by a bit. Whoosh! The defeated party left the formation in a sorry state. The middle-aged woman outside, who was controlling the situation, was gratified. Cheng-Ying has been working very hard recently. Everyone must learn well. Are there any other disciples who want to come up and try? At this moment, the surroundings quieted down. No one dared to look at Cheng-Ying's terrifying aura. Sun Er suddenly walked out. Senior sister, junior sister is willing to try. Su Erkson. Before Cheng-Ying could speak, the middle-aged woman spoke. She was very serious. This is an arena competition. Be careful not to injure others. Master, I've also been cultivating during this period of time. I hope you can give me this opportunity. Sun Er was very serious as she bowed and requested. Be careful. Thank you, Master. Sun Er's figure gently flashed as she flew into the formation. Cheng-Ying smiled happily. Junior sister, you have to be careful. Our cultivation levels are quite a few steps apart. I will use 30% of my strength. If you can't take it, call out early, so that the sword won't be merciless. It was unknown where Su Erkson's confidence came from, but she suddenly responded in public, Thank you, senior sister. Senior sister can use your full strength. The disciples below were all very shocked. They did not know why the disciple who everyone knew had the best personality suddenly changed today. Then watch carefully. Since you cultivate the Clearwater Sword technique, I will use the Clearwater Sword technique, Water Ripple Long Scar. Cheng-Ying took the first step forward, then continuously stepped out in the air. Her speed was fast, and as she moved, she brought with her dense sword chi, directly suppressing Su Erkson in the center with a crushing force. Whoosh! Everyone thought that Su Erkson would fight head-on and decide the victor in an instant. Who would have thought that she would make everyone's jaws drop? She grimaced in surprise and actually dodged the sword momentum. Chapter 721. Cheng-Ying was secretly surprised by Su Erkson's speed when he saw her escape from the attack. However, he still had a strong smile on his face. Junior sister, there will always be a winner when you fight in the arena. What's the point of dodging like this? This movement technique is indeed extraordinary. Su Erkson frowned and looked very nervous, but Ling Tong smiled in surprise. He's right. Everyone believes in themselves. The more afraid they are, the weaker they are. Pressure of the divine image. Junior sister, be careful of my icebound sword realm. The latter attacked again. This time, he wouldn't allow Su Erkson to dodge again. So before Cheng-Ying attacked, he first released the absolute image of gods. The absolute image of gods surged out, and it was strands of cold and ghastly sword chi that interweaved into a terrifying net. The speed of the cold sword realm was indescribably fast. His cultivation and strength were far above Su Erkson's. One could imagine how fast Cheng-Ying's divine image condensed and controlled her with his true strength. Who would have thought? The seemingly weak Su Erkson also released the power of the divine image and shouted, Divine image! With her as the center, without any hand seals, a large amount of surging divine image sword chi rushed out in all directions as the cold sword chi around her pressed down on her with a single thought. Tut, tut, tut. The two disciples used their divine images and clashed head-on, just like that. Cheng-Ying was indeed powerful. The divine image sword realm was above Su Erkson in terms of collision, explosion, and pressure. However, to everyone's surprise, his divine image did not instantly crush Su Erkson's divine image. Instead, the latter could fight with his divine image. Junior sister, when did the divine image become so powerful? The divine image is a supreme ability that can best represent a cultivator's overall strength. It's comparable to the big goblin's talent. Junior sister's divine image can fight head-on. Doesn't that mean that her strength is not at the first level of the feather transformation realm? Could it be that she's a cultivator of a higher level? She can't be a cultivator of a higher level. If she is a cultivator of a higher level, why is she so unknown among us closed-door disciples? Some feather transformation realm disciples really did not believe the scenes produced by the formation. In their minds, the battle between Su Erkson and Cheng Ying was undoubtedly the difference between a mortal and a cultivator. Cheng Ying was not someone she could contend against. Su erraned Su Erkson's way, not even one move. But now, although it was also a single move, they had reached a stalemate of equal strength. Only when their strength was nearly on the same level could Su Erkson and Cheng Ying reach such a stalemate. Sun Er seems to have changed after cultivating in seclusion for the past few years. She has become bolder and is no longer a yes-man. Her strength is also close to the high level of the ascendant transformation realm. The middle-aged woman in charge of the formation fell into deep thought. An hour later, the inside of the formation was still crashing and shaking. Clearly, as time passed, the gap between Cheng Ying and Su Erkson began to show. One was a genius, while the other was a nameless cultivator. In the end, Su Erkson's divine image was constantly shaken off and shattered. Cheng Ying couldn't help but advise, "Junior sister, just admit defeat. If you continue fighting like this, you won't be able to change the result. Moreover, your true chi will be greatly consumed." Su Erkson was very stubborn. Senior apprentice sister, junior apprentice sister, is untalented. I want to hold on a little longer. I want to clearly see my own strength. After saying that, she raised her aura a little, and the divine manifestation, sword chi, surged like a river. It was like a sword chi python, constantly churning and attacking the cold chi sword domain outside. This time, Cheng Ying's aura shook a little. Her eyes turned a little colder. Then, she formed a seal and suddenly released the cold chi divine manifestation. Seeing her sword chi being frozen and the space controlled by the divine manifestation shrinking, Su Erkson's face flushed red. She gritted her teeth and held back her strength, continuing to persevere. But, in the end, she persisted for 2 hours. Then, she trembled weakly and fainted as the divine manifestation shattered. Cheng Ying immediately flew into the remaining power of the divine manifestation and lifted Su Erkson up. Junior apprentice sister. Su Erkson looked at Cheng Ying tiredly. Senior apprentice sister, you're so powerful. Sun Er is sincerely convinced. You're also powerful. You can last so long in my hands. Although you can't compare to Wang Zhongtian, you can still be ranked in the top 3 among master's disciples. I didn't expect your overall strength to improve by leaps and bounds in just a few years. Amazing, amazing. I'll work harder in the future. I won't let everyone feel that I always need everyone to take care of me. You don't be so impulsive in the future. If it were another disciple who couldn't control the divine manifestation skillfully, you would have been seriously injured this time. I'll bring you to rest. With Cheng Ying's help, the two flew out of the formation and won a lot of applause. And outside the dojo of the Burning Heaven Sword sect, in the air 100 miles away, a pair of natural eyes of nothingness also slowly retracted. Her comprehension is indeed extraordinary. She can fight with a 6th-level feather transformation realm martial artist to this extent. However, that Cheng Ying didn't use her strongest attack. Sun Er probably won't be able to last for half an hour. Su Fong rode on the clouds and escaped into the void. He returned to the depths of the valley forest and continued to recover. I've already recovered 70%. As long as I reach 90%, I can directly suppress any big goblin. So what if it's the 9-headed Demon King? His physical body was becoming more and more normal. Most of his meridians had recovered. In a few years, he would be able to recover to 90%. After forcefully taking back the mortal emperor world from the Xinyuan Empire, he tried his best to settle down while recuperating. He took advantage of this time to come to the immortal melody world, to become immortal and integrate himself into the mountains of this paradise. In the most ordinary and settled state, he began to recover and integrate all kinds of magical powers. Calm and settled. For ordinary people, it was very simple. However, looking at Su Fang's journey from the Zhao country, when could he really achieve peace? For the sake of strength at all times, in order to deal with more enemies, he constantly fought with strong enemies, seized treasures, and constantly improved his strength, fought with enemies again, and took risks. He had been in this turbulent and cyclical state for the past 400 years of cultivation. Suddenly, from the moment he came to the immortal melody world, it changed. The world became different and peaceful. There was no Seven Stars Child, no Xinyuan Empire, no Prince Shui, and no Huang Lingyao. During the time he met Sun Er, he completely treated himself as an ordinary cultivator, or even a mortal. His state of mind returned to his childhood, when he often followed his grandfather to pick herbs and help tidy up the medicine shop. Now, he was like a supreme emperor who was high and mighty, but he suddenly came to the greater thousand world and went with the flow, lowering himself and forgetting himself. In the divine aperture, Yuer suddenly smiled. Master, you can call this kind of cultivation as turning into a mortal. Turning into a mortal, Su Fang didn't understand. It was the first time he heard this word in his life. Turning into a mortal is a kind of cultivation method for immortals. It is equivalent to cultivating one's Tao heart. When immortals reach a bottleneck and can't break through for 10,000 years, they will start to think of ways to break through the bottleneck. Turning into a mortal is often the first choice. They will throw away their high and mighty power, strength, and identity and forget that they are important figures. Then, they will descend into the mortal world and become immortal. They will live among mortals and adapt to everything about mortals. From there, they will find the true meaning and essence of cultivation. Of course, only a very small number of immortals would choose to cultivate in such a way. Other immortals would rather choose other methods to break through. After all, who would be willing to give up their status and authority to become a silent mortal? Master, you are actually in the cultivation state of turning into a mortal. Therefore, you will feel that your cultivation is slower than before. Everything will slow down because you are in this kind of heavenly Tao essence state. Your mind is free of distracting thoughts and desires. However, it is almost unheard of for a mortal cultivator to turn into a mortal. Therefore, Master is now cultivating in the state of turning into a mortal. You are probably one of the few people in the countless small worlds. Master is indeed an extraordinary person. It is really commendable for you to be able to calm yourself down and return to nature so quickly after becoming a realm lord. If it was someone else who became a realm lord, they would definitely immerse themselves in power and strength. Then, they would continue to strengthen themselves and become a true realm lord. Yuer explained clearly what it meant to turn into a mortal in his divine aperture. He was also full of praise for Su Fang. The divine image Jade Annulus was a Tao item. It had seen countless immortals and mortals. Someone who could make it praise the Tao was definitely an extraordinary person. Turning into a mortal is just turning into a mortal. Who cares so much? Just follow your heart and feelings. I believe you will see everything clearly in the end. In truth, what did he mean by turning into a mortal? Su Fang really didn't know. All of this was just him following his natural state of mind to cultivate. Asterisk, 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 heaven-burning sword sect. In a secret room, there weren't many formations inside. However, there were spirit-gathering formations created by top-grade spirit stones everywhere. Woo woo woo. In the center, Su Erkson was surrounded by spiritual qi. She was constantly creating clones. Each clone was formed by a large amount of sword qi. Not only could she create clones, but she could also create countless sword qi. Under her repeated transformations, her sword qi clones finally reached a point where she could use them without forming hand seals. That made her incomparably excited. Just who is he? Looking at his cultivation base, he seems to be in the calamity realm. Impossible. He can't be in the calamity realm. Every time I spar with him in the past few years, I was unable to force him to use his full strength. Whether it was speed or sword arts, he was far above me. Using nature is also a power I comprehended from his sword. Adding on this clone sword art he taught me, my cultivation speed is constantly increasing. A figure appeared in Su Erkson's mind. It was Su Fong. So all the driving force behind her increase in strength had come from Su Fong. Suddenly, that middle-aged woman entered the formation. Su Erkson hastily withdrew her sword intent. The middle-aged woman scolded. Why haven't you recovered yet? Why are you in such a rush to cultivate? I have to speed up my cultivation. Only then can I catch up to everyone. I can't hold everyone back. Su Erkson was still stubborn. Did you have some sort of fortuitous encounter recently? Or did you meet someone who gave you pointers? Your strength is completely different from a few years ago. That's especially true of your sword arts. You no longer focus on sword moves, but on intent. That's not it either. It's a sword intent I comprehended on my own when I unintentionally derived it from the Peachwood sword. So Sun has such comprehension ability. If I didn't have this bit of ability, how could I catch your attention? Master. That's true. The middle-aged woman's icy aura melted away due to the mischievous Su Erkson. She became earnest and earnest. Your senior apprentice sister, Chung Ing, has already smoothly become a sovereign and entered the upper echelon. However, the sect wants her to immediately go on a mission. It can also be considered as proving to herself that she has the strength and ability to become a sovereign. I saw that you've advanced by leaps and bounds during this time, so I plan on having you go with her. Really? That's great. I can finally go on a mission, and it's even related to the great world. Sunner was so excited that she danced around. We're all ascension transformation cultivators, but you're still acting like a child. You have to know your limits and prepare well. I'll give you a year. The middle-aged woman turned and left. Chapter 722. In the blink of an eye, another period of time passed. In cultivation, time had become the least important thing. On this day, Su Erkson came to the valley and was very happy to bring Su Fong out for a walk. They came to a cliff and sat down, facing the blue sky and white clouds. It was very comfortable. After a long silence, Sun said, "In a few days, I will be going to the Heaven Horn Island to train with my senior sister." Su Fong smiled. You have to be careful. I heard that the immortal melody world is the territory of the demon Tao. There are big goblin everywhere. The place I'm going to is really not dangerous. Don't you know about the Heaven Horn Island? Sun sized up Su Fong like a weirdo. I really don't know. The world is so big, and I don't know every place. The demon Tao controls 3 continents. I know a little about it. Is the Heaven Horn Island, you are talking about an island in the depths of a continent? The Heaven Horn Island is not in one of the 3 continents. I can't say for sure. Even you can't say for sure. I'm just a foreign cultivator. How would I know all this? It is not that I don't know, but this Heaven Horn Island is really strange. That island is constantly moving, and its speed is very fast. It is a fast-moving island. Upon hearing this, Su Fong's interest was piqued. He had been to the 7 Stars Demon Island, and naturally, he had also been to many waters. He had also seen islands that could move, but they were all islands that moved along with the waters. Even the 7 Stars Child's lair couldn't move like this. At first, people did not know why the Heaven Horn Island could move. You probably would not have guessed it. It looks like an island from the outside, but it is actually a huge demon. Huge demon. A demon that was as big as an island. Sun Air's eyes widened. That demon is called the Heaven-Horned Giant Striped Turtle. Its entire body is as big as the burning Heaven Sword Sect's dojo. Su Fong was stunned. I have also seen many big goblin. I have never seen one with a body as big as a dojo. This was what he thought. Even the ancient Flood Dragon's body could not be compared to the burning Heaven Sword Sect's dojo. The Green Feather King, the 9-segment Earth Dragon, and the Vermilion Emperor were all extraordinary monsters. However, they could not be as big as this. Heavenly Horned Giant Tortoise, That turtle demon drags an island behind it, and it constantly appears in the immortal curve realm. Whenever it encounters a big goblin or a human cultivator, the turtle demon will eat them. That's because Heavenly Horn Island grows a special kind of undead grass. That's why many big goblin and human cultivators go looking for it, but most of them are eaten by the turtle demon. Grass of immortality? How can there be such a spiritual item? Even if it's a top-grade medicinal pill, it can't reach the level of immortality. It is said that the grass of immortality can only be found in Heavenhorn Island. It is due to the spiritual energy released by the Heavenhorn giant striped tortoise that nourishes the spiritual grass. The grass of immortality is very rare. Our sect has obtained a few stalks before. They do indeed possess the power of immortality. After consuming them, one's fleshly body will recover to the level of a big goblin. Unfortunately, they are very rare and are hidden deep within Heavenhorn Island. Isn't this demon tortoise a little too mysterious? How can it not be mysterious? Sunair spoke as if she was narrating a story. You don't know the origin of this turtle. It is also known as the undead turtle. The undead turtle has lived for at least 100,000 years. Our sect's ancient records say that the undead turtle once climbed the continent and slaughtered its way into the big goblin and the human world, causing a storm of blood. No one knows how long it has lived. It might be 100,000 years, but most people say that it has lived for more than 200,000 years. A 200,000-year-old demon tortoise. This was a monster, a true monster. It made Su Fong think of the Lord of Five Poisons, an expert from 100,000 years ago. No, the Lord of Five Poisons had only lived for a few tens of thousands of years. He had been reborn. Sister Yu, on the other hand, had lived for 100,000 years. She had also been sealed for 100,000 years. She hadn't relied on herself to live for 100,000 years. The meaning was different. Deity Toad, Heavenly Drill, Rat Emperor, Daojian Fox Mother, Lord Green Feather, Nine-Section Earth Dragon, and Vermilion Emperor, these big goblins had only lived for a few tens of thousands of years. So far, Su Fong had only met one person who had lived the longest, and he could confirm that it was the 7 stars from the lower realm. He had truly cultivated for more than 100,000 years and had successfully ascended to the great world. There are also some who had lived for such a long time. The 6 lords of fertility, the Heavenly Dipper realm expert Mu Chun, and Master Heian. Other than these people, how could anyone live for 100,000 years under normal circumstances? The Heavenly Horn striped tortoise, the immortal tortoise, and a longevity tortoise were indeed peerless great demons. A great demon that had lived for 200,000 years. Not to mention the immortal melody world, it was difficult to find such a great demon in any small world. Maybe this is an opportunity. At this moment, Su Fong actually began a plan in his heart. From what Sun Er said, the demonic turtle should be acting alone. It's not like the brute force demon king or the 9-headed demon king. Wouldn't it be able to suppress it and become a small commander? How can a 200,000-year-old demonic turtle be ordinary? I didn't expect there to be such an unimaginable big goblin in the immortal melody world. He began to feel happy. Others would hide when they saw a big goblin, but he couldn't stop laughing. Su Erkson suddenly stared at Su Fong. Seeing that he was like a wooden stake, she said, "What's wrong with you? I have to go back. I'll be going out with senior sister in a few days. When I return, I might bring you a gift. Thank you for the elixirs during this period of time. If it weren't for those elixirs, my cultivation wouldn't have increased significantly. It's 100 times more precious than 100. I have a lot of elixirs. The key is that they're suitable for your cultivation. It's nothing. There's no need for a gift." The latter came back to his senses and shook his head. Sun Er suddenly stood up. "I, Su Erkson, am not someone who takes advantage of others. I'll definitely find a good treasure and give it to you as a gift." Su Erkson. However, Su Fong sized her up. Su Erkson felt uncomfortable. Then, she turned around and shouted coldly, "I'm Su Erkson. What's wrong? Do you have a problem with this name? My parents gave me this name. I don't like it even if it doesn't sound good. It has nothing to do with you." "Oomph. Sue Erkson was so angry that she suddenly disappeared into the clouds without saying goodbye. Sue Erkson. So, isn't this too much of a coincidence? I actually met a cultivator with the same surname in the distant Immortal Melody world. Su Fong smiled silently. Then, he looked at the burning Heavensword sect. Although there were layers of fog, all of this disappeared under the vision of the Great Perfection Realm. Asterisk, 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 a few days later. Two figures left the burning Heavensword sect's Dao Hall on their swords. They were Su Erkson and Cheng Ying. The two of them were at the normal speed of the Feather Transformation Realm. Soon, they were far away from the burning Heavensword sect. In the sky above them, an illusory figure was not riding a flying sword. Instead, he used the shocking ability of void travel to secretly follow them. Master, why don't you directly go with her to the Heavenhorn Island to protect her? You don't have to be so sneaky. Within the divine aperture, you curiously accompanied Su Fong. Su Fong was sensing the movements of the two women below. After hearing this, he helplessly shook his head. We're just strangers who met by chance. Since we are both going to the Heavenhorn Island, I decided to pass by. Just like that, Su Fong secretly followed them. After entering the water region, the two women slowed down and slowly searched in an S shape. They were probably looking for the Heavenhorn Island. Along the way, they also encountered some water monsters. Fortunately, the two of them were quite strong and were not threatened by the water monsters. If we go deeper into the water region, we should be in one of the three great continents, the Demon Cavern Continent. I heard that there are demon caverns everywhere. It is famous throughout the world. If the Heavenhorn Island is in the Demon Cavern Continent, it is very likely that we will encounter an extremely powerful big goblin. The two of them will also be in great danger. A map appeared in Su Fong's mind. In fact, he wanted to know how far the Wuhan continent was from here. However, he happened to see another continent, the Demon Cavern Continent. Soon, he sensed a violent aura coming from the depths of the water region. Demonic aura was coming from the depths of the sky. It was as if it had merged with heaven and earth. It felt as if they were about to enter the purgatory world. About a month later, after blindly circling around the water region, the two women suddenly slowed down at a water region very close to the Demon Cavern Continent. Su Fong released his great perfection powers and looked at the water region in front of him. After passing through layers of fog, he suddenly saw an island. After sensing for a while, he indeed felt a special demonic aura coming from the island, as well as a void life force. This must be the Heavenhorn Island. I did not expect such an island to really exist. Su Fong found it unbelievable. He secretly separated a young, nascent soul and entered the Xianhuang Six Paths Pagoda space. Welcome, Master. The brute force Demon King led more than 1,000 big goblins and immediately stood up from his cultivation state to welcome them. During this period of time, while recovering, Su Fong also used his ultimate techniques to torture the brute force Demon King for a long time before finally suppressing him. He also planted a special mark on the other big goblin. Su Fong asked the brute force Demon King to kneel down and answer, "Of course I know about the Heavenhorn Island. I have even gone there to search for the grass of immortality many times." The human cultivators are right. The Heavenhorn Island is actually the Heavenhorn giant striped turtle. We call it the immortal turtle because it has lived for at least 200,000 years. Now, all the demon kings of the three great continents are juniors in front of it. Even the nine-headed demon king does not dare to offend this immortal turtle. Tell me more. Su Fong wanted to know more about the demonic turtle. Humans could not possibly know more about the Heavenhorn giant striped turtle than demons. I also do not know where the immortal turtle came from. More than 100,000 years ago, it was a terrifying existence that every big goblin in the Immortal Melody world knew about. It would disguise itself as a huge mountain and float in the water, causing big goblins and humans to mistake it for a big goblin. Once they got close, they were all eaten by it. 100,000 years ago, the immortal turtle not only killed its way into the three great continents, but it also crawled into human territory. It was rumored that it asked for cultivation methods and caused a bloodbath between the demons and humans. Not only were humans afraid of it, but all the big goblin in the immortal melody world were afraid of it. Fortunately, it was slow and had a huge body. Why did it ask for cultivation methods? Master, it is likely that this turtle demon is too big and can't cultivate as freely as a greater demon like me. After 200,000 years, it is still in its demon form and can't take human form. This subordinate only heard about it from powerful greater demons, but there is no way to verify it. No one dares to interact with this turtle demon. Also, it is too big and can't move freely. The demon race is also unwilling to ally with it. For so many years, it has been carrying an island around the immortal curve realm. There are homeless humans among us. It is basically a wandering big goblin. He finally had some understanding of the heaven horn giant striped turtle, but he still wanted to know more. How strong is it? Su Fong asked another question, but the brute force demon king shook his head. It is rumored that it is very powerful. 100,000 years ago, it could move unhindered across the continents. No one could do anything to it. This means that no one in the immortal melody world knows how powerful the immortal turtle is. Although everyone is afraid of it, as long as they do not get close to it, nothing will happen. This immortal strengthening pill that contains the essence blood of an immortal is yours. Su Fong gave the immortal strengthening pill to the brute force demon king in front of everyone. His young infant immediately returned. He stared at the heaven horn island with his hale and hearty eyes, becoming more and more curious about how powerful the demonic turtle was. Chapter 723. Currently, he had Monster King brute force and more than 1,000 subordinates. Once he entered Xianhuang's Six Paths Pagoda and activated his magic power, Su Fong's strength would reach the peak of the 8th level of the Calamity stage. At this moment, he could see Heaven Horn Island with his naked eye. It was indeed moving. With the black sky behind him as a reference, Heaven Horn Island was slowly moving. It was almost like a mortal running. Su Erkson and Cheng Ying flew on their swords and arrived in the air above the island. It was like they were in front of a giant monster. They were somewhat afraid, but in the end, they resolutely stepped onto Heaven Horn Island. Su Fong approached the island. This island was indeed as vast as a Taoist rite. It was even larger than a Taoist rite of a second-rate power. It was probably dozens of miles long. It was like an incomplete protrusion. There was a forest above, and half of the peak was shrouded in clouds. After carefully sensing, he did sense a terrifying demonic aura below the island. The demonic aura was oval-shaped under Su Fongda's grand perfection ability. It wasn't very strong, and the demonic aura occupied a third of the island. Brotherly isn't here. If he was here, he wouldn't be able to see the turtle demon clearly. Let's see how powerful the undying grass is first. He continued to follow Su Erkson into the mountain stream through the clouds. The forest covered the cliff and the protrusion. Su Fong even saw a waterfall. He also sensed that there were some cultivators nearby. There were more than 30 of them. They should have come here to search for the undying grass. Su Fong pushed his grand perfection ability to the limit. He checked every corner to see if there was any special spiritual aura. With the way he was searching, he would most likely be able to obtain all the treasures on this island. He did find some spiritual trees, spiritual fruits, and gems, but they weren't very attractive to Su Fong. He continued to focus on sensing the spiritual aura. Since the undying grass was a spiritual grass, its spiritual aura must be extraordinary. After searching for about half a mile, he found something as expected. After passing through layers of fog and a sea of trees, he arrived at a cliff in the air. This cliff was covered by a large number of vines and trees. It hung in the air, looking like a waterfall. If one didn't pay attention, one wouldn't know that behind the vines was a stone cliff. The cliff was concave, and deep inside, there was a stone depression. Some spring water flowed along the stone wall and eventually dripped into the depression. When Su Fong arrived at the cave, he saw that there were more than a dozen translucent blood-red grasses that were less than a foot tall. They looked like mushrooms. Each flower was covered in a layer of faint blood-colored light. Upon closer inspection, The surrounding stone pools were about 10 feet wide, and there were many signs of harvesting. For example, the roots of the immortal grass had been cut off. It seemed that someone had been here and had been lucky enough to obtain a lot of immortal grass. It was estimated that it was no less than 1,000 years old, or even longer. Otherwise, the newly matured grass of immortality in the central government would not be waiting for Su Fong to pick it. After harvesting it, he discovered that the grass of immortality was indeed different from the flower of immortality and the flower of demon cores. It was a rare treasure, just like the other two. However, the aura of the grass of immortality had a strengthening and calming effect when smelling it. A small stalk of it gave off the aura of a special life form that contained traces of demonic chi. This was no longer a spiritual object, but a kind of spiritual object that mainly contained vitality. The flower of immortality and the flower of demon cores mainly contained special spiritual power. The flower of immortality was above the immortal realm. Cultivators had died many years ago and absorbed the residual power of corpses. It mainly contained true chi and spiritual power, but it also contained some life aura. The flower of demon cores was similar. As for the grass of immortality, it was completely filled with life, aura, and spiritual power. No wonder this grass was called the grass of immortality. It just so happens that absorbing the grass of immortality can help the body recover. It is also a wood-type spiritual power. After saying that, Su Fong directly cut a hole in his palm, put away the other grass of immortality, and put the remaining stalk into his flesh. Activating the power of the great perfection, his flesh automatically trembled and absorbed the grass of immortality into his body little by little. If this scene was seen by outsiders, it would be scary. Why? How could a cultivator's flesh have the ability to move on its own? The flesh in Su Fong's wound seemed to have self-consciousness and then came alive to swallow the grass of immortality. How could this be an ability of humans? Even the big goblin did not have such an ability. In fact, this was a special ability that only Su Fongda's great perfection body had. It was also because his cultivation increased step by step and reached the 8th layer calamity that such an obvious change occurred. In the beginning, for the sake of cultivation, he directly cut a hole in his body and implanted the immortal fruit. In fact, it was also the same way to absorb the immortal fruit into his flesh. Buzz the wound healed in a few seconds, and then a bloody light slightly enveloped his palm. Then it spread to his entire arm and extended to his left arm. It then entered his whole body and scattered to every corner. Su Fong's floating body also began to become bloody. This state was like blood beginning to condense on the skin layer. In fact, this was the essence of life boiling in his body. About half a day later, a part of this bloody aura slowly disappeared. It feels like the grass of immortality has cleansed my body. Not bad. My vitality has increased a lot, and it has also restored my meridians and flesh. If I devour all the grass of immortality, I should be able to completely recover. Let's see if there are any other treasures like this in other places. A stalk of grass of immortality had brought such shocking effects to Su Fong. Although it could not compare to an immortal's essence blood, it was just enough for him to completely absorb the power of the grass of immortality. Therefore, this was currently the most suitable resource for Su Fong's cultivation. He still could not control much of the great world's power. The body of a mortal was naturally the most perfect for bearing the power of the mortal world. He had not flown far when suddenly, in the direction he had been secretly sensing, there was a sudden vibration. Looking in that direction, a large number of startled birds flew out. Sun Air. It turned out that he had been secretly sensing Su Erxin's whereabouts, and immediately flew towards the depths of the forest. In just a breath's time, he arrived in front of a collapsing cliff. Much of the forest was also destroyed. A few streaks of true fire turned into fierce tigers that fused with a shocking demonic aura. They constantly pounced and bit the sword chi in the air. Half human, half beast. It feels like the spirit origin sect in the immortal primordial domain. Those cultivators cultivated with spiritual beasts. With the spiritual beasts as companions, the cultivators would eventually have the ability to spiritualize and become half human, half beast. These 5 big goblins are not too strong. They have just entered the nascent transformation realm. Half human, half beast, but they do not have the spiritual chi of the spirit origin sect. They are full of demonic aura. Looks like they're the big goblin of the immortal melody domain. Su Fong looked down. The 2 streaks of sword chi below were covered by streaks of demonic light. The demonic light was released by the 5 big goblins. These big goblins had the lower body of a demon and the upper body of a human. They were half human, half beast, and could use their immortal treasures to attack more freely than other big goblins. They could even form seals flexibly. The various demonic light attacks now came from their immortal seals. Su Fong had not made a move yet. Su Erkson could still handle it. That Cheng Ying was very strong and was in a stalemate with the big goblin. He released the brute force Demon King. When he saw the 5 half-human, half-beast big goblins, he was not surprised at all. They should be from the Demon Cavern Continent. In the Demon Cavern Continent, there is a Demon King that everyone in the immortal melody domain knows of. He is called the Sky-Piercing Demon Venerable. He is as strong as my brother, the 9-headed Demon King, or even stronger. This is because he is the strongest big goblin king in the Demon Cavern Continent. He is also one of the strongest big demons in the immortal melody domain. They dominate the immortal melody domain. The Sky-Piercing Demon Venerable doesn't seem to be simple. This was another big goblin that was extremely strong. It was a big goblin that was even stronger than the immortal toad. Su Fong was instantly curious. Demon Monarch Brute Force said, Demon Venerate Skirich is really not simple. He made a name for himself over 10,000 years ago and is already one of the most powerful demon monarchs in the immortal melody realm. His biggest difference is that he is half human and half beast, unlike the other demon monarchs who have made a name for themselves tens of thousands of years ago. He is actually just a junior, but because he is a great demon, he can use Dharma treasures and divine abilities at will, perfectly displaying the power of both demon and human. His strength is terrifying. Just like that, he rose to prominence in 10,000 years and killed many demon monarchs, becoming an existence that no one dares to provoke in the Demon Cave Continent. Interesting. I came to the immortal melody domain this time to suppress the big goblin. It's best if they're experts like the Demon Kings. I want to suppress the 9-headed Demon King and the Sky-Piercing Demon Venerable. Su Fong let the brute force Demon King return to the Xianhuang 6 Paths Pagoda space. As they continued to wait, Cheng Ying and Su Erkson were gradually at a disadvantage. The 2 girls decisively decided to escape for the time being. However, it was not easy. The 5 big goblins began to chase after them. Fortunately, the 2 girls crossed a mountain and left the 5 big goblins behind. However, at this distance, the big goblin would catch up in less than 3 breaths. At this moment, Su Fong passed by the 5 big goblins 10 times faster with the force of thunder. As he swept past them, the big goblins were bound by the Tao artifact chains and constantly wailed. What's going on? On the other side of the mountain, Cheng Ying and Su Erkson heard the monsters wailing and howling. They had clearly encountered an accident. After waiting for a few breaths, they still did not see the monsters chasing after them. The 2 girls curiously crossed the mountain and went to the clouds to take a closer look. They only saw an illusory man casting a Xianguang light that turned into a door. He easily sucked the big goblin into the door. That's... Su Erkson almost screamed. Fortunately, she covered her mouth. What a powerful figure. He suppressed 5 big goblins. Even if our master came, he would have to put in a lot of effort to kill them. These monsters should be the legendary big goblin under the Sky-Piercing Demon Venerable. They can use mystical abilities and human Dharma treasures. In the immortal melody domain, they are the most troublesome demon Tao faction for us orthodox cultivators. Cheng Ying did not ask, thinking that she was frightened. After muttering to herself, she stared deeply at the illusory man. He's too powerful. He doesn't use any moves. He seems to have directly suppressed the 5 big goblins with some mystical ability. This must be a powerhouse like the current leader. How can it be him? In less than 3 breaths, Chung Ying immediately pulled Su Erkson away. However, Su Erkson's gaze had been fixed behind her the entire time, and waves of shock surged in her heart. It's not him. No, I've seen many big shots like Master, but I've never seen that kind of certainty and nothingness that only he has. I can't see through him. This kind of temperament isn't something that every big shot can have. After coming to the depths of the forest and casting a barrier to hide, Chung Ying's pale expression gradually calmed down. Junior sister, it seems that there are righteous experts on this island. We can rest assured and search for the grass of immortality. Fortunately, we just snatched 2 stalks of grass of immortality. If we get more, we will have completed the mission. However, Su Erkson only silently adjusted her breathing. It seemed that the importance of the grass of immortality was no longer in her heart. Behind the mountain peak, in the forest, Su Fong also cast a barrier. As it opened and closed, it captured the position of the 2 women. Then it released a thought into the Xianhuang 6 Paths Pagoda. After teaching the 5 big goblins a lesson, the big goblin confessed that they were the powerhouses under the sky-piercing demon venerable. This time, they happened to encounter Heaven Horn Island and came to look for the grass of immortality to capture human powerhouses alive. Unexpectedly, they could only admit defeat when they encountered an invincible human cultivator like Su Fong. Chapter 724. This time, I'm here to deal with the heavenly horn giant pattern tortoise. After suppressing the 5 big goblin, Su Fong sat down and devoured another stalk of undying grass. Once I've recovered to 80% of my strength, I'll go down and see how powerful the longevity tortoise is. If it really is as powerful as the legends say, I'll definitely suppress it. The undying grass's ability erupted, causing rings of blood-red light to appear around Su Fong. It was like the blood wraith True Devil was cultivating. He was also secretly paying attention to Su Erkson's movements. He had everything under control. About a month later, Su Fong devoured another stalk of undying grass. His physical body was also recovering. Su Fong could perfectly fuse with the undying grass because his body had the dragon-taming wood and the heavenly gourd spirits with elemental energy. Adding on the Black Lotus True body, there was no one else in this world who could perfectly fuse with the undying grass like him. As time passed, Su Fong had devoured 8 stalks of undying grass in a year. He had finally recovered to 80% of his strength. He immediately stopped cultivating. After confirming that Su Erkson was fine, he flew out of the island and used his innate ability, the water elemental energy of the Xianhuang 6 Paths Pagoda. After using on his physical body, Su Fong was like Huang Lingyao and Shui Wuying. He quickly flew underwater. Once he was underwater, he looked at Heavenly Horn Island. It was covered in cold rocks and vines. He didn't see the legendary Heavenly Horn giant pattern tortoise at first glance. After descending a few hundred meters, he still didn't see any trace of the monster tortoise. However, when he looked at the bottom of Heavenly Horn Island, he could see that it was indeed a stone tortoise. Is this a trick? Now that he had activated his peak power and sensed it at such a close distance, he would definitely be able to sense something. His eyes immediately focused on the underwater island. Wrapped in cold rocks, he could sense a mysterious life aura coming from within. There was also a very clear demonic aura. If it weren't for the rocks covering it, the demonic aura and life aura would have directly burst out underwater. It turned out to be a layer of rocks that covered the Heavenly Horn giant striped tortoise. Therefore, it was impossible to see the mysteries of this island with the naked eye. However, there were still so many cultivators and big goblin that appeared on Heaven Horn Island. It was enough to show that there were many capable people in this world. No matter how well the Heaven Horn giant striped tortoise hid, it would still be discovered. After all, its body was too big. At this moment, Su Fong was somewhat hesitant. From what he could see, the Heaven Horn striped tortoise was in a state of hibernation. Once it was disturbed, it would be troublesome to fight it. So what if I'm here? My trip this time is to suppress the big goblin, stealing his heart. He used his great perfection ability to sense that the bottom of the island was slowly approaching. For what he could sense, the rocks at the bottom of the island were enveloped in a big goblin chi. The demonic chi formed an oval shape, and it was not only the demonic chi, but also the aura of life. Buzz! There were still 100 meters before Su Fong arrived in front of the rocks. However, when he sensed it, the demonic chi seemed to come alive and was in a state of spontaneous combustion. Then the demonic chi shot toward him. It was a kind of Yuan spirit energy. Su Fong was startled and slowed down. Have I been discovered? At the same time, a hoarse voice came from the demonic chi. Human, it's best if you put away your disguise. I've been sleeping for tens of thousands of years. I don't want anyone to disturb me. Leave. I'm not interested in a cultivator like you. As expected, I've been discovered. This demonic tortoise really is arrogant. After thinking for a moment, Su Fong continued to approach. He transmitted, Longevity Tortoise, I've come for you. Rumor has it that you haven't been able to take human form for the past 100,000 years. You've been shackled in a minor world. Scram, I'm not interested in listening to a mortal's nonsense. The demonic tortoise was clearly infuriated, and it didn't hold back at all. I'm a mortal, but I have the ability to help you undergo tribulation and ascend to a major world. This is your final chance to ascend to a major world. If you miss this chance, you'll have to remain in this minor world for the rest of your life. Even if you live for 1,000,000 years, what's the point? Human, I've warned you several times, but you still don't know what's good for you. Do you really want me to get angry? Once I awaken, my body will be in a starving state. At that time, don't blame me for slaughtering my way into your human continent. Why can't we have a proper talk? I have nothing to talk about with you. Since you don't want to leave, don't blame me for being impolite. After the demonic tortoise finished speaking, the underwater island began to rotate counterclockwise. Heavenly Horn Island also began to rotate counterclockwise, no longer moving in a straight line. A demonic tortoise is a demonic tortoise. You can't even listen to human words. Do you still want to fight? Su Fong knew that the longevity tortoise was about to attack. He was a bit surprised, but everything was within his expectations. He also wanted to see just how strong this demonic tortoise was. Crack, crack. Cracks began to appear on one of the rocks on the underwater island. Some small rocks began to fall off, as if some creature that had been suppressed by the rock was about to come back to life. Could it be the heavenly horn giant pattern tortoise? Boom. While he was looking forward to it, he didn't realize that the trembling rock was like a cannonball. Its target was Su Fong, and it actually caused waves to break through the water. The rock was surrounded by demonic aura. It was clearly a cannonball made of demonic aura. Under the water, it could blast away the cold water with the speed of a feather transformation realm cultivator. If it really hit Su Fong with such strength and speed, he would be turned into minced meat instantly. However, Su Fong wasn't going to wait so foolishly. In the next second, he dodged first. With the rock speed, he easily dodged into the deep water dozens of meters away. Oh, it seems that you have the ability to control water. If one rock can't deal with you, then I'll use more rocks to deal with you. However, I still want to personally smash you into pieces so that your flesh and blood will attract those low-level creatures to eat you up. It seemed that the heavenly horned giant pattern tortoise was in a bad mood. An entire island was crashing towards him. With just one look, Su Fong felt that his tiny body couldn't shake such a huge island. Fortunately, although the heavenly horned giant pattern tortoise's speed was shocking, it was still not comparable to a feather transformation realm expert. It also couldn't compare to Su Fong's speed. After a few flashes, Su Fong arrived on the other side. As the legend said, the heavenly horned giant pattern tortoise's speed was its Achilles heel. If its speed was also so shocking, Su Fong would have been in a tough battle. In the end, the man and the island swayed around in the water. On the surface, the heavenly horned island would sometimes head east, sometimes west, and sometimes turn in circles. Rustle, rustle. Some treasure-seeking cultivators finally couldn't help but flee the island in fear. Some big goblin were the same. They left gratefully. Underwater, Su Fong let his guard down. From the looks of the situation, the heavenly horned giant patterned tortoise could only attack from a distance. It wasn't much of a threat to him. It's time to find a way to suppress such a huge demon. Even if its speed isn't slow, once I suppress it, I can use the divine image jade wall to find its cultivation and physical flaws. It can then cultivate and transform into a human form. Once this big goblin transforms into a human form, its strength will surpass the green feather king and the immortal toad. It will reach the level of an immortal. However, the divine image jade wall won't be enough to suppress such a huge demon. I still have to use the chaos essence sacred realm. However, the huge demon is surrounded by countless rocks. I have to shatter the rocks first to expose the huge demon's true body. Seems like everything is predestined by the heavens. Back then, I couldn't suppress the immortal toad because he was too fast. On the other hand, this giant demon's speed is his weakness. My speed is many times faster than his. Once I activate the Origin Saint realm, he won't be able to dodge. With a confident smile on his face, he started to look for an opportunity to expose the huge demon's true body. Seeing the island chasing after him, Su Fong finally decided to make the first move. Hence, he activated his life divine aura and the world divine aura. With the netherworld aura as the main force, he quickly condensed a frozen, jet black huge sword. TSK. TSK. Before the huge tortoise could react, Su Fong activated the jet black huge sword and chased after it from the side of the island. He stabbed the sword upwards and pierced the bottom of the island. Boom! The destructive power of this sword was astonishing. It created a hole with a diameter of 10 feet. There were also many cracks around it. If it wasn't for the shackles brought by the deep water, the destructive power of this sword would be several times stronger. Of course, Su Fong also noticed that the rocks below the island were much stronger than ordinary rocks. If they were ordinary rocks, they would have been shattered. One sword wouldn't do. He activated the World Divine Aura again and controlled the Netherworld Sword Aura. Pa! 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 Without any mercy, he slashed the underwater island, causing more rocks to fall down. How is this a battle with a huge demon? It was clearly a battle with nature. Soon, the underwater was filled with falling rocks. Large amounts of water surged to the surface. Whoosh! Just as Su Fong activated his sword aura, a rock that was 10 times faster than the previous cannonball shot towards him. In the process, the rock itself was also shattering. Su Fong was still hearing the splashing of water. Only now did he break out in a cold sweat. This attack was clearly different. After dodging for a while, he discovered that there was actually a demonic aura behind the rock that was pushing it. No wonder the rock had such destructive power. Human, you're really courting death. Since you insist on disturbing my rest, I'll wake up early and wantonly search for the big goblin and humans for food. The tortoise's cold shout came from the trembling underwater island. Crack! Crack! Su Fong turned to look at the underwater island. He heard a tearing sound coming from below. Whoosh! Whoosh! It was the rocks at the bottom again. Large amounts of cracks appeared one after another. They were constantly shattering and falling. It was as if there was some power controlling a peeling force that was peeling the rocks off the underwater island again and again. Whoosh! The entire island also began to tremble, shaking left and right. More and more rocks fell, especially at the bottom. Huge rocks that were 100 feet in size collapsed one after another, falling into the deep abyss underwater. They formed a shocking bubble and flew towards the surface of the water. It felt like the entire Heavenly Horn Island was about to collapse. Su Fong stared ahead. Heavenly Horn Giant Pattern Tortoise, I want to see what your true body is like. A third of the underwater island was violently collapsing. There were only some cracks in other places. Gradually, Su Fong saw a stone golem. It was over 10,000 meters tall. It felt like it was embedded in the bottom of the island. Or perhaps it was like a giant magnet that was sucked to the bottom of the island. The Heavenly Horn Giant Pattern Tortoise. Although it was a stone turtle, under Su Fang's gaze, it was filled with an indescribable demonic chi. The stone turtle was over 10,000 meters tall. It was truly terrifying for it to suddenly appear in this underwater world. It was much larger than the ancient flood dragon Bagu. It was truly worthy of being a monster that had lived for 200,000 years. Boom! The stone turtle suddenly peeled off from the bottom of the island. It was as if it had suddenly become weightless and fell into the water. It caused the water to be filled with bubbles and undercurrents. Then, with some cracking sounds, the black rock on the stone golem's surface shattered, revealing a true giant tortoise. The giant tortoise was a blackish-gray color. There were some black lines on its body. It looked like the lines were connected to each other to form a giant tortoise. Its skin was too thick, and its 4 claws were like 4 sharp stone carvings. As for the tortoise shell on its back, it occupied 2/3 of its body. Chapter 725. It was different from ordinary demon tortoises. The demon tortoise Su Fang had encountered at the Fishbeak River had a tortoise shell that covered less than 1/3 of its body, but the heaven-horned giant tortoise's shell almost covered its entire body. Was that why it could live for 200,000 years? I'm really fated with demon tortoises. The first demon I encountered was the dragon tortoise spirit, and the biggest demon I encountered this time was the heaven-horned giant tortoise. Su Fang felt a sense of déjà vu when he saw this. The same feeling of astonishment brought his thoughts back to 400 years ago. When he was crossing the Fishbeak River, the first demon he encountered was the dragon tortoise spirit. Even though it was just a little demon tortoise, the shock it brought to him was indescribable. Now that 400 years had passed, he had seen many big goblin and fought against immortal beasts, but it was his first time seeing such an enormous demon. Thus he still found it hard to believe. The heaven-horned giant tortoise was floating in the water too. Its shell was separated by black lines, forming a diamond-shaped tortoise shell. If the tortoise was floating on the water, humans would not be able to tell it was a big goblin at first glance. Human, the giant tortoise's head slowly appeared. When it spoke, its eyes had a black, bloody glow. Even its head was as huge as a mountain. It said in an eerie voice, "I don't have the appetite to devour a human like you. I'll climb up the human continent again and devour dojos." Su Fang calmed himself down. "Longevity tortoise, I really do have a way to help you become an immortal. Calm down and listen carefully. You think a human like you has a way? 100,000 years ago, I suppressed many big goblin and obtained their martial arts. I then invaded the human world, but I didn't find any martial arts that could help me cultivate. I don't care what you're planning, but you're going to die today. Sigh, you never listen to me. Since you're going to attack me, I'll use my strength to suppress you and tell you about it. You think too highly of yourself if you want to suppress me. Even if you're an immortal, you won't be able to suppress me. Many human leaders have died at my hands. Die." The longevity tortoise suddenly opened its mouth. He attacked as he pleased. When it opened its mouth, it spat out a suction force that formed a whirlpool of water in front of it. It was at least half a kilometer wide. Then, like a cannonball, it shot out the whirlpool of water. This time, the speed of the whirlpool was as fast as teleportation. Furthermore, it spun crazily in the water. It was like countless blades that could cut anything into pieces. Su Fang had really underestimated this demon tortoise. Its speed was incredible. Immediately, he activated his divine might and world energy and flew to the right. Fortunately, his speed was just above the water whirlpool, almost brushing past it. He was also a little careless, and when the water whirlpool swept past, it caused some of the surrounding water to become distorted. When the water came into contact with the Su Fang, it immediately caused the defense to tremble. At this moment, Yura reminded him, "Master, don't be careless. The destructive power of this whirlpool is close to that of a Peking Grey Dharma treasure. The power of this attack is twice as strong as the attacks of Heartless Granny, the Great Emperor Dipper, the Third Prince, the Elders of Heaven and Earth, and the Grand Marquis King. It is indeed powerful. No wonder the giant monster can dominate this place. No one can deal with it. With such strength and the fact that it lives underwater, even the 7-star child would not be able to deal with the giant tortoise. The giant tortoise's strength has completely surpassed the feather transformation realm. It is probably at the strength of the Lord of Five Poisons when he was at his peak. Even Senior Rock King would have to use his true body and the Lord of Heaven's soul sword to fight with this demon tortoise. It is too powerful. I'm no match for it. Fortunately, my speed is my advantage. I can attack faster than it. I can only go above it. Then it can't escape. With another flash, it collided with the twisting water flow. Seeing how powerful the heavenly horn giant striped tortoise was, he kept thinking. However, at this moment, the heavenly horn giant striped tortoise opened its mouth and sucked again. In an instant, 2 water whirlpools were formed. In almost a breath, 2 water whirlpools were formed. Moreover, they were still at the same speed as before. They shot towards Su Fong from both sides. Whoosh! This caused Su Fong to be badly battered. Although he was fast, he was still restrained by the water. If he was in the natural world, he could have dodged it. Suddenly, he dove downwards. The 2 water whirlpools attacked, but the water whirlpools caused by the water whirlpools also had shocking destructive power. Therefore, just as Su Fong dodged the 2 water whirlpools, he was hit by the water whirlpools again and again. His physical defense was shocked. If this continued, his defense would definitely be shattered. He looked at the longevity tortoise and was stunned. This time, the longevity tortoise opened its mouth and sucked, forming 3 water whirlpools. The 3 water whirlpools spread out in the air. They were 3 miles long. Together with the distorted water around them, they were about the same size as the heavenly horn giant striped tortoise. Too powerful. The longevity tortoise can form such a large water whirlpool in a breath. Even a leader can't do this. Is an invincible king underwater. Su Fong couldn't help but tremble. He once more increased his speed, releasing even more world energy. Only by increasing his speed, once more, would he be able to dodge the 3 water whirlpools. When the 3 water whirlpools shot over, it felt like the entire water region was moving up and down. Soon, the distorted water whirlpools began to appear around them. Whoosh! Su Fong's speed did indeed increase. However, it was still difficult for him to fly out of the water whirlpools. Although he had dodged the water whirlpools, Su Fong was still trapped in the distorted water. He saw his defenses shatter layer by layer. My defenses can block a direct attack from a nascent transformation expert, aside from the Grand Elders. But they were actually shattered by the longevity tortoise's attack. Su Fong was so shocked that he lost control of his breathing. Is the difference in strength between me and the longevity tortoise really that great? Then isn't the longevity tortoise on the same level as the 6 lords of fertility and Master Heiyun? Yuer said, Master, the heavenly horn giant striped tortoise is probably invincible in this underwater world. Even if Master Heiyun came here, he wouldn't be able to do anything to it. Yuer is a Tao item, so you can sense how much its power affects space. But I'm not scared. However, you don't see any attacks from the longevity tortoise. It seems like it only has long-range attacks. At that moment, Su Fong heard some noise. The longevity tortoise had once again opened its mouth and effortlessly sucked in 4 water whirlpools. The 4 water whirlpools were about the same size as the longevity tortoise. They shook the surrounding water, causing it to roar and surge. Yuer continued, Master's analysis is correct. The longevity tortoise probably doesn't have many divine abilities. Even these water whirlpools are only in their normal form. Their destructive power is shocking, but they don't contain much divine power. Seeing the 4 water whirlpools, Su Fong immediately fled into the depths of the water. Since the longevity tortoise didn't have many divine abilities, all of its attacks were from its body. At that moment, Su Fong deliberately fled. He looked behind him and saw that the 4 water whirlpools were already behind him, causing 4 huge explosions. The surrounding water world was overturned and tumbled. Everything was tangled together. Su Fong hurriedly crossed the turbulent water. His defenses were shaken again. He also ordered Demon King Brute Force and more than 1,000 big goblins to release their spiritual power in true chi. It seemed that he was preparing to suppress the heavenly horned giant striped tortoise. With the support of more than 1,000 big goblins, Su Fong's speed doubled. He finally had the absolute advantage. Moreover, he hid his aura and constantly traversed the turbulent water. The heavenly horned giant striped tortoise was searching for Su Fong's location. At that moment, it sucked in 5 water whirlpools. They passed through its body, causing the water world in front of it to distort for tens of thousands of meters. Any island under this distortion would be smashed by the currents again and then shattered. This was simply the power of an immortal. No wonder it was a giant monster. It deserved to be called the first giant monster in the immortal melody world. In terms of destructive power, who could be a match for the giant tortoise? Come to die. The heavenly horned, giant striped tortoise finally saw Su Fong. He was about a mile away. At this distance, the heavenly horned, giant striped tortoise could not kill Su Fong. What a joke. Path of illusion and reality, limitless water clone. At that moment, the giant tortoise spat out 5 water whirlpools, forming a vast destructive attack that overturned everything. Su Fong took advantage of the turbulent time to use the limitless water clone. In an instant, as his true body flashed, dozens of clones were left behind. Su Fong's clones flew off in all directions. Because Su Fong had fused the limitless Tao art with the ethereal true insight, his clones had the ability to attack, as well as the ability to move. The clones were to confuse the tortoise demon. Su Fong's true body, driven by the Tao artifact, world aura, and natal aura, had already successfully leaped above the giant tortoise when the 5 water whirlpools hit the water where the clones were. At that moment, the giant tortoise looked like a pitch-black mottled rock. This was the best opportunity. Su Fong waved his hand. Watch how I deal with you. Chi! Chi! Suddenly, the bewitched giant tortoise below spat out a layer of venom from its nose. It felt like snot. The venom quickly shot up. So this clumsy giant tortoise looked stupid, but it's not honest. It already knew that I was above it, so it used this venom to deal with me. Su Fong saw that the venom was about to kill him. He knew that this giant tortoise's venom must be something extraordinary. He immediately summoned the Blood Wraith True Demon, which released a unique poisonous gas and pounced forward. At the same time, he activated his Tao artifact to form an absolute defense around him. You're cunning, but I'm not easy to deal with. He immediately retreated. When he heard a wheezing sound, he looked forward. The venom had hit the Blood Wraith True Demon and was crazily corroding his flesh. The rest of the venom was blocked by the Tao artifact. Su Fong was still worried about the Blood Wraith True Demon, but the venom on the Blood Wraith's body burst out and collided with the venom. Waves of venomous flames exploded. Watch as I shatter your tortoise shell. Without worrying about the venom, Su Fong raised his speed to the peak once more. He was like a waterspout, bringing with him an astonishing momentum as he flew toward the tortoise shell on the giant tortoise's back. He formed a large number of seals, and a holy venerate's fist was like a flood. Su Fong's body was like a bow, and he quickly flew forward and struck the tortoise shell. The tortoise shell was now as big as a world in front of him. Bang! The fist seemed to possess unparalleled power, and it was about to punch a hole in the tortoise shell. Crack! 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 But Su Fong didn't see that the tortoise shell had been shattered by the holy venerate's fist because there wasn't the slightest crack on it. Suddenly, a heart-wrenching pain came from his right arm. Only then did he realize that it was his right arm that was being torn apart. Su Fong's eyes almost popped out of their sockets. He said dryly, "This tortoise shell isn't just a little hard. You little human brat, you're quite strong. Not only can you block my venom, but you can also get close enough to attack me." The tortoise demon's cruel laughter came from the front of the tortoise shell. "But you definitely can't beat me. Since I can dominate a minor world, I can tell you that my tortoise shell is stronger than all King Grey Dharma treasures. No mortal Dharma treasures can harm my tortoise shell in the slightest, unless it's a Tao item." Chapter 726. Even if a mortal activates a Tao artifact, they won't be able to injure me. Only immortals might be able to activate a Tao artifact. In other words, if I were to attack you like this, You wouldn't be able to injure me in the slightest, even if you had 1,000,000 years, 1,000 years, or even 10,000 years. The turtle demon laughed coldly from the turtle shell. Back then, many human experts and Big Goblin couldn't hurt me. You're the only human. My right arm was actually shattered. He took a few steps back. The bones in his right arm were almost shattered. Fortunately, they were healing at an astonishing speed. His palm strike didn't hurt the enemy at all. Instead, it hurt him a lot. Su Fong stared blankly at the black turtle shell in front of him. His palm strike could definitely fight against a king gray Dharma treasure. Was this turtle shell even harder than a king gray Dharma treasure? He had fought many enemies, but he had never encountered such a scene. To him, this was a hearty blow to his heart's content. Yu was also furious. He felt injustice for Su Fong and insisted on fighting back. Master, if your palm strike is not strong enough, then try using a Dharma treasure. All right, Su Fong quickly retreated. However, he realized that the longevity turtle had not done anything since it started shooting the poisonous gas. It just floated in the deep water, showing a posture that Su Fong could attack at will. All right, he didn't believe that there was such a monster in the world. He summoned the fire god elephant without hesitation. Scarlet flames burned around the fire god elephant. After its aura exploded, it also reached a certain level of a king gray Dharma treasure. The elephant's trunk curled and hit the turtle shell like a whip. Ha! He still had some fear in his heart. Therefore, he urged the fire god elephant to attack. He didn't release his full strength, just a casual attack. The result was exactly the same as when his palm struck the turtle shell. The turtle shell was like a vast and unmoving world, while the fire god elephant was pushed back. Su Fong immediately sized up the fire god elephant. His heart ached indescribably. He didn't want anything to happen to the fire god elephant. Good boy. Fortunately, I didn't use my full strength. Otherwise, the fire god elephant would be crippled. The turtle demon was very proud. Although the expression on his face could not be seen, his voice was very smug and disdainful. Humans don't have eyes. I can be your grandfather's grandfather's grandfather, but you still don't know what's good for you. I know you're powerful. No matter how powerful you are, you can't do anything to me. That's why I'm attacking you like this. If you could kill me, why would you waste words with an ordinary human like me? Brat, you are quite extraordinary. I was right. There are a lot of rumors about you outside, and it seems that most of them are true. You can't use any divine power, and your attacks can't be compared to an ordinary big goblin. You can only use long-range attacks. As for close-range attacks, other than venom, what else do you have? The turtle demon was very proud after hearing this. That's how the humans talk about me. Su Fong was helpless, but his eyes were still as sharp as nails. What do you think? Your real advantage is your demonic body. It's really hard. I don't think there are many people in this world who can hurt you, but I still want to try. He summoned a few more king gray Dharma treasures. They were treasures that had yet to be fused, and their quality surpassed the fire god elephants. They were almost comparable to the edgeless sword. Your Dharma treasures won't hurt me at all. The turtle demon seemed to have grown eyes on its back. Su Fong's meaning was clear. Your perception is extraordinary. My lifespan is limitless. That so-called human emperor can't even compare to a single strand of my lifespan. I think your Dharma treasures are going to be gone. You still have a head? Today, I want to see just how hard you are. The 3 Dharma treasures he summoned were all flying swords. Their quality was about the same as the edgeless sword, and they were all mid-king gray Dharma treasures. Although they had yet to be fused, the hardness of the Dharma treasures could be used to unleash shocking attacks. Swish! Swish! Su Fong flicked 2 of the flying swords out of his hands. With 2 bangs, they struck the turtle shell like lightning. Crack! Crack! Unexpectedly, in the blink of an eye, the turtle shell didn't move. Its color didn't change at all. Instead, after the collision, the 2 flying swords trembled in the air. They began to shatter from the tip. In an instant, they turned into a pile of fragments. Su Fong was as stiff as a block of wood. The last flying sword in his hand automatically returned to his body as a layer of cold sweat formed on his brow. It was also very surprised inside the divine aperture. Master, this turtle demon is even more terrifying than the rumors say. I finally understand why the heavenly horned giant patterned turtle can make everyone afraid. With its demonic body, it isn't even afraid of king grade Dharma treasures. Let me ask you, who in this small world can hurt it? I think I'm already an expert with strength comparable to the Grand Elder. I felt a sense of accomplishment when I took back the mortal emperor world and suppressed many experts. But this is a heart-wrenching pain. Fortunately, after coming to the immortal melody realm, I've been in a state of calmness, allowing myself to become immortal with the heart of a mortal. Otherwise, if I had the same mentality as before and encountered this again, wouldn't my Tao heart be shaken? Su Fong forced a smile and also mocked himself. What a joke. This is the first time in my life that I've felt so powerless. Suddenly, even more venom poured into Su Fong. Gui and the Tao artifact were defending themselves, but there was too much poison. If a little bit landed on their bodies, it would probably take a long time to dissolve. He hurriedly dodged. At the same time, he tried his best to calm his mind. He looked at the giant tortoise shell, but he still didn't feel good. Could it be that he was still a weakling? This type of doubt was fatal. It could shake a cultivator's state of mind and affect their willpower. The giant tortoise suddenly moved quickly as well, and a familiar devilish voice sounded. Human, I'm not going to continue playing with you. Disturbing my rest is a capital offense. I want you to die. You are released even more Tao artifacts' divine aura. Master, you cannot let the demonic turtle attack you again. It might have some other abilities, and its physical body might not be its only advantage. I know. I almost lost my confidence just now. Our Su Fong can deal with so many experts, but we can't even hurt a big goblin. He immediately regained his spirit, and his eyes were filled with vigor. Nine Suns power. Demonic turtle, no matter how powerful and cunning you are, you would never have thought that a mortal like me would have a peerless Dharma treasure that can suppress you. Without such a Dharma treasure, I would not have come looking for a heaven-defying monster like you. Buzz. The yang energy in his body poured into the chaos sacred mirror, and the mirror immediately shot out a red glow. The red glow enveloped the heaven-horn giant striped tortoise. The only thing I'm worried about now is that the giant tortoise is so huge. Can the chaos sacred mirror's red glow cover it? Su Fong held his breath and stared at the red glow. He did not know what would happen next. He had personally experienced how tough the heaven-horned giant striped tortoise was. Even a royal gray Dharma treasure could not hurt it, and its size was unbelievable. A second ago, he could not even catch his breath, but in the next second, he saw the red glow begin to expand in the water. It quickly grew to a few hundred meters, then 1,000 meters, and finally 10,000 meters. In less than 3 breaths, the red glow became 10,000 meters long. When the heaven-horned giant striped tortoise turned around, it stirred up a shocking water vortex. The red glow landed on its shell. In the blink of an eye, it enveloped the tortoise. With a whoosh, the water vortex caused by the demonic turtle turning around suddenly disappeared. The giant tortoise that was enveloped by the red glow actually stopped moving. This scene made Su Fong almost cry tears of joy. While he was greatly surprised, he also looked at the chaos sacred mirror in a new light. It turned out that it could deal with such a heaven-defying monster. What kind of power is this? The giant tortoise in the red glow could no longer move. It was obvious that the giant tortoise's claws were about to extend to attack. Half of its head also wanted to come out, but could not move. Its demonic aura was also scattered by an invisible force, forming some sparks. It was as if a fire was about to burst out. The giant tortoise's eyes turned blood red this time. It trembled slightly, and its gaze fell on Su Fong. What Dharma treasure is in your hand? It gives off such a shackling aura. So you also know that the Dharma treasure in my hand is extraordinary. Su Fong was now completely relaxed. This Dharma treasure can shackle any big goblin. Previously, I did not have the confidence to use it to shackle you. so I wanted to use my own strength to deal with you. But in the end, I admit that this demonic turtle is really powerful. I can't do anything to you. In the end, I took out this Dharma treasure to deal with you. I also have his heaven-horn giant. I have no grudges with you. In the beginning, you were the one who attacked me first. You were the one who was aggressive. Why do you want to kill me? I'm not here to kill you. I'm here to suppress you and make you my little commander. At first, I did not know that there was a big goblin like you in the Immortal Melody world. If I had known, I would have come to find you long ago. What's the use of suppressing me? I have such a huge body and slow speed. Do you think I can be your mount? I have many big goblins as mounts. It's not your turn to be a mount. I'm only interested in your strength. As expected, as long as you can master mystical abilities and let yourself cultivate, you will definitely be the unparalleled big goblin in the small world. Other than my Rock King friend and a mutated ancient big goblin, there's almost no one who can stand shoulder to shoulder with you. Do you really have a cultivation technique that can let me cultivate? The ruthlessness and killing intent in the giant tortoise's eyes suddenly disappeared. Instead, they became clear as a human's. Su Fong condensed his chi and thought for a while. I'm 80% sure. If you can really let me cultivate, then I can do anything you want me to. Unexpectedly, the giant tortoise suddenly looked up to the sky and cried. The two streams of tears were like huge rocks falling down. Do you know how long I have lived? It was so agitated. Instead, Su Fong was very surprised. Legend has it that you have lived for 200,000 years. The demonic aura of the tortoise demon spurted out from its nostrils, but it was immediately burned by the power of the shackles. Nonsense. Nonsense. I have lived for more than 600,000 years. 600,000 years? Is this a joke? Su Fong felt as if he had fallen into an ice cave. 200,000 years was already a time that he could not imagine. Even an immortal who lived 600,000 years would not be able to live that long. He kept sucking in cold breaths. Facing a 600,000-year-old giant demon, Su Fong began to feel uneasy and fearful again. You have really lived for so long? How is that possible? My tortoise race's lifespan is 10 times that of ordinary life forms. When I was 100,000 years old, I swallowed a spiritual object that grew in the depths of the water that came from beyond the heavens. After swallowing it, I slowly lived for 200,000 years. Then, I lived longer and longer. Every time I slept for at least 1,000 years, and at most 10,000 years. How many of my kind have died of old age in front of me? In these endless years, I suddenly realized that longevity is a curse to me. I would rather live for 10,000 years than to leave this small world. I've lived enough, and I've had enough. You won't understand how I feel. You won't understand how I've looked up at the sky in the past 600,000 years and envied those birds that can spread their wings and fly. As it spoke, more tears fell from the old tortoise's eyes. Every drop of its tears contained spiritual chi, and it attracted many ordinary water monsters to fight for its food. Chapter 727. The monster that sucked tears had a different demonic aura. Seeing this, Su Fong was enlightened. I understand now. This demonic tortoise has lived for so long that all the energy in its body is filled with vitality. The grass of immortality on the Heavenly Horn Island absorbed the spiritual chi released by the demonic tortoise and became a unique spiritual object. The Heavenly Horn giant striped tortoise could not wait to ask, "Human, do you really have a way for me to cultivate?" I once obtained a Tao artifact called the Divine Image Jade Annulus. This Tao artifact is very magical. It can deduce the cultivation techniques in the body and find the flaws in the body. It can find the problem and the solution. I think it will be useful for a big goblin like you. The situation had changed. Su Fong did not expect the demonic tortoise to be so eager to cultivate. Since this was the case, things became simpler. He could also feel that the demonic tortoise really wanted to change its current situation. Its situation was the same as the human cultivators who could not break through. For example, Heartless Granny was an antique who could not ascend. If she could find a way to ascend, she would do everything she could to get it. Every cultivator would feel the same way. Who would not want to break free from the shackles, break free from the mortal body, and become an immortal? The demonic tortoise floated in the red light like a huge rock. If you really have a way for me to cultivate, I will give you great benefits. All I want is for you to become a commander and lend me a hand in the future. That way, you can follow by my side and use a Tao item to cultivate at all times. I can guarantee that any treasures I obtain will be shared with you. Treasures aren't attractive to me. Don't say things like that. I have lived for 600,000 years. In this endless time, I have devoured and killed many big goblin and humans. I have also swallowed many spiritual objects. All kinds of treasures have accumulated and settled down. They are sealed in my body. That is a shocking amount of wealth. Is that so? Su Fong seemed to be tempted, but he grinned mischievously. If you become my commander, then that treasure will be mine. Furthermore, I've never shackled the great demons that follow me. Whatever resources I use to cultivate, I'll give them the same resources. Think about it carefully. Now that I've shackled you, this Dharma treasure of mine possesses unimaginable power. You can choose to submit to me, or you can— The turtle demon trembled. Suddenly he said, "Let me take a look at that Shun Xiang Jade annulus you mentioned first." Simple a ray of celestial light shot out from his eyes. The divine image, Jade annulus, immediately floated within it. Although it was not an offensive magic treasure, its power was still extraordinary. After a moment of silence, the turtle demon said, "I have one last request. If you agree to it and fulfill it, I will sincerely serve you and give you a large number of treasures in my body. Speak." Use the divine image, Jade annulus, to find out what's wrong with me. If you can really find it, I'll submit to you without hesitation and follow you in your cultivation. You can keep your word. I wouldn't joke about something like this. The turtle demon appeared to be very sincere. All right then, just watch. Su Fong pondered for a moment. Seeing that the turtle demon was shackled by the primordial chaos sacred realm, he did not have to worry about the other party playing tricks. With a thought, the celestial light immediately flew in front of the red light. He controlled some of the primordial chaos sacred mirror's power and then used the divine image Jade annulus. The divine image Jade annulus flew in and floated in front of the turtle demon, activating a ray of celestial light that was not too dazzling. Under the primordial chaos sacred realm's red light, the celestial light did not seem to be shackled. However, this was Su Fong controlling the primordial chaos sacred realm. He believed that a magic treasure like the ancient mirror could not be penetrated by the power of other magic treasures. The turtle demon stared excitedly at the divine image Jade annulus. In front of it, the divine image Jade annulus presented a ray of celestial light that was 10 feet wide. Its power was constantly penetrating into it. Such a big goblin. Even you would not be able to sense it easily. I'll take this opportunity to rest for a while and devour the grass of immortality and the immortal's power. It would probably take a long time. Su Fong maintained the state of activating the ancient mirror. He took out a stalk of grass of immortality with his left hand and devoured a drop of the immortal's blood at the same time. There was a sudden surge of energy in his body. His bones, meridians, flesh, and blood were all swept by the grass of immortality and the immortal's power. One human and one demon were locked in a stalemate in the deep-water world. Days passed. After a full month, Su Fong felt a slight movement in the red light's shackling power. It turned out that the divine image, Jade annulus celestial light aura, was being emitted from the heavenly horned giant striped turtle's body. Whoosh! The divine image, Jade annulus, immediately returned to Su Fong's body. The turtle demon hurriedly asked, "Tell me, what's wrong with me?" After a few breaths, Su Fong had a look of astonishment. He was even more shocked as he said, "The Tao artifact original spirit told me that there are still about 1/5 of your meridians. There are countless impurities in your flesh and blood, causing the blockage. This is because your demonic aura can only circulate slowly in your body. This is one of the reasons why your cultivation has slowed down. On the other hand, although the demonic aura in your body is pure, it has not completely reached the level of true qi. That is to say, most of the power in your body is settled by your demonic aura and not by your cultivation. This shows that you indeed lack a brilliant cultivation method. This is also related to the blockage in your body. Of course, the biggest problem, apart from the above 2 points, is that there is a substance in the depths of your body where the spirit pearl is located. It is slowly devouring the spirit qi of your spirit pearl, causing you to constantly cultivate spirit qi. Your spirit pearl is also consuming spirit qi at all times. Your 100,000 years of cultivation are equivalent to cultivation in vain. According to the original spirit, as long as these 3 problems are solved, you'll be able to cultivate step by step like an ordinary big goblin and eventually become a demon immortal. Given your current situation, once the problem is solved, you will only need a few hundred years to ascend to the great world. Is that so? After Su Fong finished speaking word by word, the demon tortoise's eyes, which had been filled with suspicion and anticipation, suddenly became indifferent. It seemed that Su Fong was most likely right. Of course, all of this was due to the divine image jade annulus. Without it, perhaps only immortals would be able to find these problems. At this moment, you said mysteriously in the divine aperture, "Master, that immortal turtle's body does indeed have immortal spiritual life force. It has fused with its spirit pearl and body, but it has not fused perfectly. This is the secret to its longevity. If Master can obtain that life force, then Master will be able to directly confront immortals within 100 years. I'm a bit interested in this, but forget it. It is not easy for it to live for hundreds of thousands of years. Most importantly, even without its power, I will also have the strength of an immortal within 1,000 years." Su Fong replied calmly. However, at this moment, the demon turtle suddenly shouted, "Human, I will agree to your request right now. I am willing to cultivate with you and serve you." It was Su Fong's turn to be surprised. It's that simple? My only hope now is to break free from this shackle. I will serve whoever can free me from this fate, even if it is a human. Then I will believe you. However, I must plant a seal to shackle you in your young infant and spirit pearl, because I will not allow myself to be threatened. That is not a problem. Buzz, buzz, buzz. Finally, he smiled. Previously, he thought that he would have to fight the demon turtle before he could suppress it. Who knew that this would happen? In the sky, he absorbed the power of the Origin's sacred realm, the divine image jade annulus, and the true demon blood plate. Together with Su Fong's own special power, they fused into a seal. The demon turtle really did not resist. He watched as the seal flew from Su Fong's hand and entered his head and body. He even took the initiative to absorb the seal. Escape. With a flip of his hand, the Origin sacred realm disappeared. The red light also disappeared completely. The heavenly horned giant striped turtle regained its freedom and swallowed a large amount of river water. It seemed to be in a good mood. Su Fong also relaxed and went to the demon turtle's back. At that moment, he looked at the place where he attacked with his Dharma treasure. Indeed, there was no trace of damage. The demon turtle's shell was so hard that it surpassed a king gray Dharma treasure and any material from the mortal realm. The shock it brought to Su Fong was indescribable. In comparison, humans had to cultivate for countless years to become immortals before they could have such a hard and indestructible body. Su Fong came in front of the demon turtle's black head. "Immortal turtle, I will enter your body first and find the substance that swallowed your spirit pearl. This way, your spirit pearl will become stronger and stronger. It will greatly change your current situation." At such a close distance, even though he had suppressed the demon turtle, Su Fong still felt a chill in his heart. The demon turtle nodded with difficulty. "That is not a problem. However, if you really want me to cultivate with you, you have to find a big space for me to live in. I've thought about that. You can stay in the divine image jade wall. Only a Tao treasure can have such a big space for you to cultivate. My King Gray Dharma treasure is close to a Tao treasure. You can hold the space, but it will put a huge burden on the Dharma treasure. After saying that, when the demon turtle opened its mouth, Su Fong released the flesh fetus divine armor and flew into the demon turtle's mouth. Su Fong's body seemed to shrink as he used his divine ability. However, this was actually his own defense. He formed a barrier that allowed Su Fong to enter the formation. That was why he looked only the size of fist. He suddenly felt like he had returned to the ancient flood dragon's body. The auras were too similar, except for the immortal chi. 2 hours later, Su Fong arrived at the demon turtle's internal space. There was still some distance from the demon turtle's stomach. Here, near a heart, there was a spirit light formed by the fusion of immortal chi and demon chi. This was the demon turtle's internal space. It was similar to a dantian, but it was also similar to a golden core. The spirit light seemed to be 30 meters wide, but when Su Fong entered it, he found that the space was over 1,000 meters wide. This was the demon turtle's internal space that it had cultivated for hundreds of thousands of years. It was about the same as a Calamity Realm cultivator. It could be seen just how lacking the demon turtle's cultivation was. It couldn't even compare to the Leech King or the Flame Tongue Eccentric. It really is a treasure trove. Su Fong was shocked. There were countless Dharma treasures floating around this spirit light world. There were tens of thousands of them. There was also a large amount of spiritual items, gems, spirit stones, and even immortal stones. Little fellow, these are the treasures left behind by the big goblin and cultivators I devoured over the past hundreds of thousands of years. I absorbed them all into the spirit bead space. After so many years, the king grade and below magic treasures have all slowly decayed. They were unable to withstand the suppression of the demon chi in the spirit bead space. The remaining Dharma treasures are all king grade. This demon chi yuan spirit was only a foot long. This was a portion of the undying turtle's young nascent soul. He hadn't expected it to be so weak. It continued, not many of those spiritual items were preserved, but many of them were eaten by me. As for those treasures and spirit stones, I didn't touch them. The ones left behind were all high-grade and above gems. From today onwards, the treasures here are all yours. You can use them to establish a force. Tens of thousands of king-grade Dharma artifacts. Isn't that enough? Then many thanks. Let's go take a look at the central spirit bead first. Under the guidance of the demon turtle's young, nascent soul, Su Fong slowly flew past the Dharma treasures. The quality of these Dharma treasures wasn't bad. There were quite a few treasures on the same level as the Rakshasa Jade Bottle. These Dharma treasures have practically surrounded your spirit bead. At the center, a 10-meter spirit bead appeared in front of Su Fong. There were also a large number of Dharma treasures floating around it. Chapter 728. Su Fong had never seen or heard of such a shocking spiritual pearl before. A big goblin's spiritual pearl was only one size bigger than a human's golden core. A human's golden core was only the size of a walnut. However, the immortal turtle spiritual pearl, the turtle demon, said, I can only condense this spiritual pearl space. There are too many magic treasures, and they often move with the demonic aura. I don't care about them. If you want me to control the magic treasures, I'd rather have a good sleep. Su Fong shook his head. Maybe the loss of the spiritual pearl's spiritual chi has something to do with the magic treasures. Look at so many magic treasures. They are all in the same balance with your spiritual pearl's spiritual chi. They might be devouring your spiritual chi. After saying that, he used his great perfection ability to sense the spiritual pearl together with the divine image jade wall. In the state of sensing, the spiritual chi of the spiritual pearl was slowly flowing to the surroundings like mottled light. Su Fong was surprised to find that some magic treasures were indeed absorbing some spiritual chi. Although it was not very fast, it still had some effect on the spiritual pearl. The turtle demon could not see or sense it. However, Su Fong could see where the spiritual chi was dissipating and what it came into contact with after fusing with the Tao artifact. You suddenly had a discovery. Master, there's a magic treasure behind. It's quickly absorbing the spiritual chi of the spiritual pearl. Fortunately, he had the Ur. It was a Tao artifact. At such a close distance, Su Fong could not compare to its sensing ability. He came to the back of the spiritual pearl with the turtle demon Yang Ying. Among the dozens of magic treasures, one magic treasure immediately attracted their attention. It was a sword, a spiritual sword without a Tao artifact that released a mortal aura. The appearance of the sword was very simple. It did not have a luxurious appearance. It was just a sword. The spiritual sword was obviously longer than ordinary flying swords that had not been fused. Ordinary flying swords were 1 foot long, but this spiritual sword was 3 feet long. It was the same length as the treasured swords on the backs of the disciples of the Burning Heaven Sword sect and the Green Lotus Sword sect. The body of the sword was as thin as a cicada's wing and dark black. There was nothing special about the sword hilt. There were only some intertwined patterns. This was probably to make the spiritual sword feel better in the hand. This meant that the person who created the flying sword had put an effort to refine this sword. This sword, the turtle monster Yang Nascent, seemed to suddenly understand why this spirit sword was so different from the rest. Su Fong was deeply attracted by the flying sword. It's this flying sword that's devouring the spiritual energy of your spiritual pearl. Of course, the magic treasures around the spiritual pearl are also absorbing your spiritual energy, but this flying sword is absorbing the most spiritual energy. Then why aren't you sealing it? Immortal Tortoise, you sealed so many treasures in this space. Su Fong suddenly looked at the demon tortoise. Could it be that you're planning to use these treasures for something in the future? The demon tortoise was embarrassed. Well, everyone wants to obtain treasures. Back then, I also wanted to cultivate into a supreme big goblin and establish a force in the small world, becoming the king of demons. I understand. It turned out that the demon tortoise was also planning to become an overlord. However, his wishful thinking was wrong. Su Fong walked into the spiritual sword and was very close to him. The 1-meter-long spirit sword was completely black, but there were a lot of stars that had absorbed gravel all over the sword. In addition, the spirit sword was as thin as a cicada's wing. It was as if this flying sword was made from a cicada's wing. Buzz! Suddenly, the spirit sword suddenly appeared. A sword aura retreated backward. Su Fong was surprised and happy. There's an original spirit. Master, this flying sword has been absorbing spiritual energy here for so many years. In addition, it's an extraordinary existence among the king-grade magic weapons. At this time, its original spirit must have surpassed the Rakshasa Jade Vase and the Xianhuang Six Paths Pagoda. In order to protect Su Fong, the Tao artifact's power was released. You were said at the same time, Master, the quality of this flying sword is even better than the Xianhuang Six Paths Pagoda. It's perfect. How is that possible? In the small world, the most powerful king-grade magic weapon I've seen is the Xianhuang Six Paths Pagoda. It's almost a Tao artifact. This spirit sword can't be better than it. Yu thinks that the Xianhuang Six Paths Pagoda's quality is affected because it was damaged. Otherwise, after so many years, it would have reached the peak of the king-grade magic weapon. However, it's just a little bit away, and this spirit sword has reached that level. It's already a magic weapon that has reached the peak of the small world. It's really predestined. Master just lost the edgeless sword and obtained this extraordinary treasure. This treasure is not a Tao artifact, but in Master's hands, it's more useful than a Tao artifact. If Master activates it, Master's strength will be stronger. There's a line of true text between the sword hilt and the sword body. After being overjoyed, Su Fong stared at the flying sword. Another line of text appeared. Heavenly Evil Sovereign's Star Daylight Sword. Heavenly Evil Sovereign. Starry Daylight Sword. Clearly, the flying sword was the Starry Daylight Sword, and the Heavenly Evil Sovereign was its creator. Su Fong's skill came from his courage. He slowly stretched out his hand towards the Starry Daylight Sword. Starry Daylight Sword, don't be afraid. I have a Tao artifact on me. I won't hurt you. In the future, you will recognize me as your master. I will let you go to the outside world and become a peerless, immortal sword. The turtle demon's heart ached. It also knew that this magic weapon was peerless. Kid, this is Lord Turtle's treasure. Su Fong ignored it. With a strong sense of possessiveness, his 5 fingers touched the cold sword hilt. He then slowly grasped the sword between his 5 fingers. Yes, that's good. Any magic weapon will only be able to shine when it meets the right master. Su Fong was in a good mood. He slowly poured in his yang qi. Buzz! The starry, sand-like substance on the sword body suddenly flashed. It was incomparably dazzling. In the blink of an eye, it formed a 1-foot-tall, starry sand sword light. This was the Starry Daylight sword's primordial spirit. Su Fong was even more shocked. He could not bear to part with it. Starry Daylight sword, what a good treasure. In the future, I will be your master. Tell me, how can you surpass so many magic weapons and absorb the power of the spiritual pearls alone? From a starry sword light came the voice of a 7- or 8-year-old boy. Master, I am Little Star, the primordial spirit of the Starry Daylight sword. I have been born for 1,000,000 years. 1,000,000 years. This caused Su Fong's face to be filled with shock. 1,000,000-year-old magic weapon. It was probably as old as the Xianhuang 6 Paths Pagoda. It was even older than the Rakshasa Jade Vase and other magic weapons. Among the magic weapons in Su Fong's hands, only the Celestial Jade Annulus, the Xianhuang 6 Paths Pagoda, and the Celestial Jade Annulus could possibly be 1,000,000 years old. The other magic weapons, even the instant space ring from the great ape demon realm lord, could not possibly be 1,000,000 years old. The edgeless heavy sword was only a few 100,000 years old. Little Star's master is called the Evil Lord. He was a peerless expert from a small world 1,000,000 years ago. Once he obtained a large amount of star sand meteorite fragments that did not belong to the small world, which was the predecessor of Little Star. The Evil Lord used an extremely small amount of primordial absorbing stone in the small world to fuse with the star sand meteorite fragments. After spending a few 100,000 years, he finally created Little Star. From the moment it was born, Little Star's quality reached the peak of the King grade. Its hardness also surpassed most of the King grade magic weapons and was not much different from a Tao artifact. Unfortunately, the Evil Lord failed to pass the tribulation in the end, and his magic weapons were scattered in the mortal world. Little Star was obtained by many cultivators, but none of them could fuse with Little Star. Around 300,000 years ago, Little Star was obtained by another cultivator. In the end, he met this big goblin and was eaten. Little Star followed him here. In order to become stronger, Little Star began to absorb the spiritual energy of the spiritual pearls. This absorption took more than 200,000 years. The Starlight Sword Chi honestly said, Little Star had long reached the peak of the King grade magic weapon. Unfortunately, I was unable to find a master and could not leave this place. I could only rely on myself to absorb spiritual energy. I hope I can leave in the future and find a master. You dare to absorb Lord Turtle's power? Yang Ing Turtle Demon was furious. Don't, this is my magic weapon. Su Fong protected Little Star. He did not want this magic weapon to be damaged. The Starlight Sword also released a mysterious light and fused with Su Fong's true chi. As soon as they touched, there was a sizzling sound. Su Fong was shocked to find that the Starlight Sword had a devouring ability. Not only could it devour the big goblin's spiritual energy, it could also devour his true chi. Yu'er continued, Master, Yu'er knows about the primordial absorbing stone. This is a strange stone that is even more absorbing than the profound yellow stone. It has the ability to absorb material energy. It is very rare. Furthermore, the Starlight Sword itself came from a material of the large world, so it also has a certain amount of suction power. That is why the Starlight Sword has such a shocking ability to devour. Little Star, return to my body first. Su Fong turned around, and the Starlight Sword actually turned into a white light and disappeared. It did not seem to be releasing its own black light, but Su Fong did not know why for now. He looked at the turtle demon and pointed at the magic weapons around him. if I do not help you to reshackle these magic weapons. In another 100,000 years, your spiritual energy will also be absorbed by other magic weapons and spiritual objects. You're known as the immortal turtle, but in the end, you will not be able to live forever. You will also die. The turtle demon was furious. Then hurry up and do it. No wonder the cultivation of the spirit pearl did not improve after so many years. It is because of these harmful magic weapons. Su Fong smiled but did not say anything. The turtle demon reaped what he sowed. He could not cultivate, but he had to obtain so many treasures. Su Fong arrived above the spirit pearl and looked at the countless magic weapons. He was ready to take action. Suck them all into your space so that I won't feel stifled. Then I won't stand on ceremony. This was a great thing. Who would not be willing? He activated the flaming cloud spirit gourd, and it appeared in his left hand. It shot out an astonishing suction force, which began to cover a large number of magic weapons around him. The flaming cloud spirit gourd shook slightly and sucked in a large number of magic weapons. Tens of thousands of magic weapons disappeared in less than 10 breaths. He began to absorb the magic weapons again. A large number of numinous treasures flowed over. In the end, Su Fong discovered many treasures that he was interested in. For example, the elixir spirit of the life-seizing, recreating elixir, the immortal flower, and the demon core flower were all supreme treasures that cultivators sought the most. There were also many pure essence pills that had condensed consciousness. Haha, these treasures are all formed by absorbing the spirit chi of the immortal turtle. Each flower and each pill contains an astonishing amount of vitality. Combined with the power of a deity, the essence of the flaming gourd spirit tree, and my own yang energy, won't I be able to completely recover in a short time? He had never thought that there would be so many treasures that he had dreamed of. There were a lot of treasures, especially those that could be directly absorbed, which had an amazing effect on the yang soul and the body. The heavenly horned giant striped turtle was depressed. It turned out that the treasures he had treated as treasures were absorbing spirit chi in his body and suppressing his cultivation. If he had known, he would have just thrown them away as a pile of trash. Finally, he absorbed the spirit stones and treasures into the spirit gourd. There were also many 1-foot-large world origin gems, origin essences, and origin essence stones. However, most of them were not from the Immortal Melody world, but from other worlds. It seemed that the cultivators of the Immortal Melody world used to be experts from different small worlds. No matter which small world they were from, once Su Fong merged them, the power of the world in his body would definitely be deeper. The space of the spirit bead was empty. Su Fong formed a barrier and added it to the surrounding barrier. This way, the immortal turtle's defense would be even stronger. I'm rich, really rich. Not only did I get so many treasures, but I also have the Starry Daylight Sword. In a few years, I can perfectly recover from my injuries. Maybe I can even break through to the 9th level of catastrophe because of this. After leaving the giant turtle's body, Su Fong couldn't stop laughing. He immediately let the turtle demon rise to the surface of the water. Chapter 729. When he returned to the surface, a third of Heavenhorn Island had already collapsed. He sensed that Su Erkson was no longer here. She should have rushed back to the burning Heavensword sect. Su Fong used his perfect perception to surround the remaining islands. After finding dozens of stalks of undying grass, he used the divine image Jade Annulus to absorb the huge undying tortoise. In order to quickly fuse with the Starry Daylight Sword and recover from his injuries, he needed a quiet place to cultivate. He originally wanted to go directly to the Demon Cave continent, but he felt that returning to the burning Heavensword sect was the most suitable. A few dozen breaths later, he returned to the depths of the burning Heavensword sect. I have fate with Su Erkson, but it's better not to disturb her. In the end, he returned to the canyon he had built before and hid in the formation to cultivate. After devouring all kinds of spiritual items, especially the treasures obtained from the undying tortoise, Su Fong quickly recovered to 90%. He was just one step away from recovering to his peak. Kid, let me cultivate with the Tao artifact. After a while, the undying tortoise spoke from the Tao artifact. Su Fong let Yue use his ability to find more flaws in the undying tortoise's body. He estimated that it would take a while. Master! At this moment, a sword light appeared in Su Fong's hand. It was not starry black, but a natural white light. The Starry Daylight Sword. The Yuan spirit's voice was very clear. Little Star has already reached the peak of magic treasure. It will not be troublesome to fuse with Master. As expected, the sword activated a shocking amount of spiritual qi and fused with Su Fong's blood. This was Su Fong's first time encountering such a strange thing. If all magic treasures were so perfect, why would he need to spend so much effort to cultivate them? The Starry Daylight Sword circled in front of Su Fong. Some starlight patterns appeared on the sword's surface, containing a blood-colored luster. This was fusing with Su Fong's essence qi. Su Fong's consciousness also entered the Starry Daylight Sword space. The space inside was not as big as the Xianhuang Six Paths Pagoda, less than 1/10 of it. Most flying swords were like this. Although the space was not big, it was still a space. Furthermore, the formations were perfect. Su Fong finally saw the Starry Daylight Sword's essence. Star sand from the outside world and primal absorbing stone from the small world. They did have the ability to absorb energy, but it wasn't very shocking. However, after a cultivator forged them into a magic treasure, their ability would increase by 100 times. The Star Daylight Sword had been absorbing the power of the demon turtle for so many years to constantly improve itself. Therefore, the array formation and the magic treasure itself were filled with the tenacity of life. It made the Star Daylight Sword seem like a magic treasure with flesh and blood. After fusing for a period of time, Su Fongji began to grasp the Starry Daylight Sword array formation as well as the countless mysterious seals. With Little Star's help, the formations and seals continued to fuse together. He began to truly understand the abilities of the Starlight Sword. The Starry Daylight Sword itself was extremely sturdy. This was one of its abilities. After fusing with the formation, Su Fong was surprised to find that it was a magic treasure similar to the stone Rui. The stone 10-9 was the treasure he obtained from 7 Stars Demon Island with Lan Haiqing. Because of that treasure, Lan Haiqing's strength kept increasing. It was definitely an amazing treasure. He did not expect that the last few layers of the Starry Daylight Sword's mysterious imprints were also a form-changing secret technique. By activating the secret imprints, the Starry Daylight Sword could instantly change its appearance. If the stone 10-9 could change its appearance, then what about the Starry Daylight Sword? When the secret technique was formed, the Starbright Sword released an incomparably dazzling snow-white sunlight. The Starbright Sword actually instantly transformed into a white blade of light. This white light blade was 3 feet long. It floated in front of Su Fong. If one did not look closely, they would not see that it was a treasure. It was just a part of the sunlight. It was just slightly stronger. Su Fong Dao praised. He kept stroking the Starry Daylight Sword that only he could see clearly. Little Star, your ability is really useful. You can fuse with sunlight. The naked eye can't see it. It's like killing enemies. You can kill them silently. The light blade moved along with the air. It did not have any killing intent or aggressiveness. The magic treasure then replied, Little Star is originally an assassination magic treasure. Back then, the old master, the evil lord, was an assassin that everyone feared. He made Little Star into a magic treasure, which was naturally the best tool for killing people. Little Star can merge itself with natural light and become one with the light. It can be white or black. The night is formless, and the day is a white aurora. Thus, Little Star is called the Starry Daylight Sword. Back then, the old master was prepared to call it the Heaven Aurora Sword, but he still insisted on the name Starry Daylight Sword. He wanted Little Star to become the most powerful flying sword in the world. The Starry Daylight Sword is indeed excellent. He formed a few more imprints. The Starry Daylight Sword, which had fused with the natural light, became slightly weaker. It was even more perfectly hidden in the light. When he held it in his hand, it released a ray of white light. It flew around his body. He could not see its shadow. He could only hear some buzzing sounds and white lines in the air. They remained around Su Fong. The air suddenly shot forward. It was like a thin needle piercing into the depths of space. It was truly able to kill without leaving a trace. Grabbing it in his hand, he activated the Lotus Tune Sword technique from the Green Lotus Sword sect. From the formless Starry Daylight Sword, a large amount of white lotus leaf sword chi shot out. It was also white, but it was too fast and domineering. One could still sense its aura, but overall, Su Fong looked like he was holding nothing. He was dancing in the air. That was because the Starry Daylight Sword and its sword art were both formless, as expected of a divine weapon forged by assassins. Little star, you can use it now. It'll definitely help me kill powerful enemies in the future. As long as it's not an immortal or an enemy like the Undying Tortoise, I'll be able to kill them. Immortals and Undying Tortoises are extremely rare. Back then, my old master, the Evil Dominator, used Little Star to kill many human giants. He used Little Star's ability to silently assassinate them. When I fused with the Edgeless Sword, it was an origin treasure. Unfortunately, it was shattered by a power from a great world. In the future, Little Star will be my most common weapon. After Su Fong stroked it for a while, he happily continued to fuse with the Starry Daylight Sword. His injuries were recovering rapidly. Encountering the Undying Tortoise was definitely something he did not expect. After I recover, I'll go and capture more Big Goblin, especially the 9-headed Demon King and the heaven-reaching Demon Venerable. These two big goblins are even more powerful than those human elders. Their strength is comparable to the Lord of 5 Poisons. They've already surpassed the Feather Transformation realm. He continued to strengthen his physical body and devour spiritual objects. Soon, his young infant arrived in the Divine Image Jade Walls space. In such a huge Tao artifact space, the first thing he saw was the black Undying Tortoise. The Undying Tortoise looked at Su Fong. "Kid, you didn't lie to me. You let me clearly see every flaw in my physical body. My physical body has too many impurities. Although the cultivation speed of the Spiritual Pearl's power has increased, my physical body is too big. How can I purify my physical body?" Su Fong looked at you, who appeared. "How is it?" Through carefully sensing the Undying Tortoise's physical body. The most important thing now is to cleanse the Undying Tortoise's body of impurities. Ewer said, "Next is the cultivation method." Currently, Ewer is capturing traces of cultivation from the Undying Tortoise's body to create a suitable cultivation method for the Undying Tortoise. I think it will take some time. Because there are too few traces of cultivation methods, it's difficult to deduce more cultivation methods. Cultivation methods? Maybe Li Haojie can help. That's right. He's a demon catcher. He cultivates demon-catching techniques and is very familiar with demons. Maybe he really knows some special cultivation methods. Undying Tortoise. As for cleansing your body, I have no idea. With such a big goblin body, how many experts at the same level as the elders will be needed to cleanse your body? Anyway, I don't care. You've already agreed. Who knew that the Undying Tortoise would be so stubborn? You were thought for a while. As expected of a Tao artifact, it could also deduce. It had a suggestion. The Undying Tortoise's physical body is already very strong and hard. Even if an immortal wanted to cleanse its body, it would be difficult. In this small world, no human can do this. Human power? Does it require the power of nature? This sentence pulled Su Fong out of his confusion. Human power was limited. This was something that could not be changed. Since human power could not do it, why not borrow the power of nature? Su Fong looked at the Undying Tortoise. After a while, he looked at You're saying that it's similar to how I used the power of the Earth's core to repair the Xianhuang 6 Paths Pagoda. You're said, "That's what I mean. However, it's not the power of the Earth's core. It's the power of incineration. It can't cleanse the body. It's best if it's heavenly thunder. If it can withstand the attack of heavenly thunder, it can cleanse the body with heavenly thunder. Heavenly thunder and heavenly thunder can't be controlled. We can't test how vast its power is. No matter how strong the Undying Tortoise is, it can't surpass the power of nature. Su Fong rejected. We can't take the risk. Since we need a large amount of heavenly thunder, it's better to use the power of the tribulation to cleanse the body, or use an extremely powerful lightning-type divine ability. With many experts casting a lightning-type formation together, we can cleanse the body and control the power of thunder. Only then will we have a chance. Suddenly, he felt a wave of pity. This was the great world's lightning-type power that the third prince had used that day. If he could control it, wouldn't he be able to cleanse the undying tortoise's body? The undying tortoise, this is all we've got for now. But at least there's some progress. When I return to my small world, I'll discuss it with more seniors. We'll solve it. You've waited for hundreds of thousands of years. You don't care about this little bit of time, do you? Leaving behind these words, Su Fong's young infant returned to his body. At this time, his body stood up. His body was in the middle of opening and closing. This was because his injuries had finally recovered. Not only did he recover, but his cultivation had also reached the peak of the 8th layer of calamity. After a while, he would be able to break through to the 9th layer of calamity. Su Fong suddenly flew towards the depths of the burning Heaven Sword sect. After a few breaths, he arrived at the mountain forest where Su Erkson often cultivated. When he arrived at the forest formation, he just happened to see her cultivating inside the formation. Su Erkson was also affected by the formation. When she flashed out, she saw Su Fong floating outside. She asked in shock and anger, "Did you follow me to Heaven Horn Island?" Su Fong was startled. Then, he nodded generously. "Yes, I went. I also took care of those demons that were chasing after you." "Why didn't you tell me that Heaven Horn Island was so dangerous?" "I went there to carry out a mission." "Why did you run there?" "I thought something happened to you." At that time, Heaven Horn Island suddenly shook. Senior's sister and I didn't get more grass of immortality, so we came back early. When we came back and didn't see you, we thought you were... I also went there for the grass of immortality. I also obtained a lot of it. I'm here to give you these grass of immortality. Su Fong took out more than 20 stalks of grass of immortality. Without waiting for Su Erkson to notice, they were already floating around her. With these grass of immortality, you can quickly reach the high level of the winged transformation realm. I also have to leave. I'm here to say goodbye and thank you. Su Erkson was shocked, speechless by so many grass of immortality. Suddenly, she was very disappointed. You left so quickly. I thought you were going to accompany me to practice the sword again. I still want to master your sword in Tent Realm. I came to the Immortal Melody world to do something. Now that my injuries have recovered, it's time to leave. As long as your cultivation continues to break through, you will comprehend a higher and deeper sword intent. Can't you stay a little longer? Half a day is fine. All right, then accompany me to practice the sword for half a day. Su Fong's eyes revealed a fierce tenacity. It was an imposing manner that Su Fong couldn't refuse.